Chapter 1827. The authorities of various factions had arrived. Who exactly is the culprit that's capable of doing this? Killing 9 Heavens Supremes in public and provoking 9 formidable factions in public. The culprit is trying to let the whole 9 Heavens immortal realm know about it. Could it be that the forbidden secrets of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land have surfaced? What a pity it's too far away. Otherwise, I would surely go and take a look at it in person. Send someone over at once, we can't afford to miss out on it. Countless cultivators couldn't help but exclaim. The other supreme Taoism factions, the ancient tribes, and some experts that had been hiding in seclusion noticed something was not right. Even though they had nothing to do with the incident, they still sent someone to keep an eye on it. Time gradually passed. 1,000 breaths later, the 6 Unity Forbidden Land, not far away from the 2 ancient cities, beheaded? Qin Nan and Doom gasped when they saw the words written in blood. They had just been brought here by Supreme Rodeo, yet they did not expect such a shocking incident to take place here. Qin Nan collected his thoughts after some time. He asked, Mengyao, what exactly happened in the depths of the 9 Heavens immortal realm? Supreme Rodeo, who had attracted the attention of many cultivators, let out a sigh and said, That's the scariest part. We were competing for the successions, but a few strange laughs were heard all of a sudden, followed by a destructive force. Then it ended up like this. However, there's one thing we're sure of. The people of the heaven-repelling ancient sect must be involved, but we have no idea what role they are playing in it. The heaven-repelling ancient sect. Qin Nan and Doom's eyes glittered. As a matter of fact, it's not necessarily a bad thing. A 9 Heavens Supreme has already died. Even if the culprit failed to behead the culprit, many 9 Heavens Supremes are going to die too. It shouldn't be a problem to gather 5 corpses. Supreme Rodeo wore a faint smile on her attractive face. Even if something serious was happening in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land, did it have anything to do with her? She had only come this time to conquer her little husband. That's true, Qin Nan nodded, but for some reason, he didn't feel particularly happy. Instead, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. The people from the Emperor's ancient island are here. Suddenly, a commotion broke out among the cultivators in the 2 ancient cities. Qin Nan lifted his gaze and saw a few 100,000 mysterious runes intertwining in the rift in the distance. An island over 100,000 zhang long emitting immortal glows slowly appeared with strong gusts of wind. This island was a Tao artifact. Moreover, it was an extremely rare existence among the ancient Tao artifacts. It possessed all kinds of incredible powers. In addition to that, Qin Nan also saw 3 figures standing at the edge of the island. Each of them was emitting a faint aura, causing the qi in the surroundings to become chaotic. Those with lower cultivations couldn't even look directly at him. They were 3 9 Heavens Supremes. 3 9 Heavens Supremes and the Master of the Emperor's ancient island, Supreme Lan Wang, are here too. It seems like the Emperor's ancient island is really infuriated this time. A peak heaven immortal murmured with a blank face. At that instant, a strong aura surged between the heavens and earth. Following it, the sky within a few 10,000 li was covered in a brilliant blue glow. An ancient boat that resembled both a whale and a dragon, over 50,000 zhang long, as if it had gathered the power of the ocean, slowly sailed out of it. 4 figures were standing at the bow of the boat. The person leading the group was wearing an immortal robe. His long black hair drifted in the wind. His body was emitting an imperious aura. They were the 4 9 Heavens Supremes of the 10,000-layer immortal pagoda. The person leading them was none other than the infamous Supreme Jing Zhong. Many of the cultivators present couldn't help but feel shocked again. The development of the situation had completely exceeded their expectations. At this rate, how many 9 Heavens Supremes are going to show up? Doom swallowed a mouthful of saliva. I'm not sure how many 9 Heavens Supremes are going to show up, but I'm sure these 9 Heavens Supremes are only probing the situation. The real authorities are still hiding behind the scenes. Supreme Rodeo chuckled. Qin Nan and Doom were startled. Even the 9 Heavens Supremes were only here to investigate the situation? Did that mean the situation was going to involve someone stronger than the 9 Heavens Supremes? Not long after, Immortal Emperor Zhugang, Immortal Emperor Guqing, and the rest of the peerless rulers flew out of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land and boarded the boat that the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda had sent out. Even Supreme Lan Wang and the authorities of the Emperor's ancient island, who were sworn enemies of the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda, boarded the boat for the first time. Almost every cultivator could tell that the two factions were trying to learn about the situation in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. They were also communicating with the other factions to resolve the situation. Do you think the person behind the scenes in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land can handle the 9 factions? There's no way they can stop it. From what I know, the Emperor's ancient island and the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda have set up an ancient teleportation formation to summon the experts of other factions. The other 7 factions have sent their 9 Heavens Supremes. This is the first time in my life that I've seen such a huge scene. Within the ancient city, tens of thousands of cultivators were engaged in a heated discussion. Additionally, there were also loose cultivators and cultivators from other forces rushing over from all directions. It was a lively scene. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo flew a great distance away and waited patiently. What was interesting was that Meng Jiugong had even given the order to set up a bet on whether the 9 Supremes were going to be killed or not. Unfortunately, it did not cause much of a stir. During this period of time, the appearance of exceptional geniuses, the death of a peerless ruler, or the appearance of successions and fortunate encounters did not attract much attention. The attention of the heavens and earth only belonged to the incident and the 9 Heavens Supremes that had shown up. Some time later, the ancient Tao weapons above the Immortal Island and the ancient boat suddenly shuddered vigorously. It lasted for quite some time. Supreme Rodeo, who was teasing Qin Nan, straightened her face and said, "The 9 Heavens Supremes of the other factions are here too. They are going to make their move soon." A few moments after she finished the sentence, a brilliant immortal glow soared into the sky. A glamorous woman in a red dress flew out of the ancient boat and waved her hand in the air. Chapter 1828 / It's the 9 Heavens Supreme of the tribe of Immortal Spirit. She's using the purest immortal force to heal the 9 Heavens Supremes. A peerless ruler who had arrived in the middle of the battle said. The rest of the cultivators in the ancient cities might not be aware of it, but they immediately came to a realization. The 9 factions were trying to save the 9 Heavens Supremes as soon as possible. If they succeeded, the person in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land would not be able to kill the 9 Heavens Supremes even if he was extremely capable. Under the crowd's gaze, the woman in a red dress waved her hand again. 9 mystical resources entered the 9 Heavens Supremes' bodies. The 9 Heavens Supremes who were covered in wounds and blood immediately recovered from their injuries. Their injuries were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, for some reason, the 9 Heavens Supremes were still unconscious. As expected of the 9 major factions, they're giving away 9 immortal blessing-grade treasures in one go. Many people exclaimed, "Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh." At that instant, figures flew out from the ancient ship one after another. Each of them possessed an intimidating aura, causing everything in the world to pale in comparison. The 9 Heavens Supremes of the 9 factions had shown up. The ones leading them were Supreme Lan Wang and Supreme Jing Zhong. Rise! Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jing Zhong, and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes let out a thunderous roar as they executed their move. The rift within a few 100,000 li was dyed in rare phenomena. Tens of thousands of cultivators and the 2 enormous ancient cities appeared minuscule at that instant, like a bunch of ants watching a battle between giants. Bang bang bang! A series of explosions took place on the bodies of the nine heavens supremes that were pinned to the bottom of the pit by the blood spears. Blood mist scattered in the air and condensed into drops of blood that fell to the ground. 9 words appeared in front of the crowd in less than a breath's time. If anyone dares to act recklessly, they will be executed in advance. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were startled. They immediately stopped performing the hand seals. The culprit has indeed set up a trap in advance. Supreme Lan Wang shook his head and said, "There's nothing we can do now. We'll have to trouble you to set up a formation to treat their injuries." The rest of the 9 heavens supremes nodded and withdrew. Only the woman in a red dress remained in the air. She set up several ancient formations emitting immortal and sacred glows. "It's a failure. It's going to be boring if it doesn't fail. Half of the time has passed. We should wait a little longer." The cultivators in the ancient cities discussed among themselves. Time passed by slowly. Tens of thousands of cultivators were waiting. The various factions in the 9 heavens immortal realm were waiting too. Millions of cultivators were waiting too. Because they all wanted to know, now that the 9 great powers had sent out such a huge lineup, would they be able to successfully behead the mastermind behind all this? Or was the culprit not going to show up again? Since the 9 heavens supremes made their moves, Supreme Rodeo had been telling Qin Nan about their backgrounds and the secrets of the ancient tribes. Envoy Feng Hua even sent him a message to ask about his situation. Qin Nan explained a lot to him. The feeling in his heart grew stronger. Even a peerless ruler would not be able to take part in the storm that was growing stronger, let alone him. However, he had a feeling that it was somehow related to him somehow. Less than half the period of an incense stick left. The culprit should be showing up soon, right? Of course. Even if the culprit is extremely capable, there's no way he can kill 9 heavens supremes in just an hour. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes wore a stern look. The island and the ancient boat were emitting a terrifying aura. The atmosphere between heaven and earth suddenly became solemn. Even Supreme Rodeo, who had been flirting with Qin Nan, fell silent. Her eyes were looking in the direction of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. She would occasionally glance behind the 2 ancient cities. At this moment, the flow of time seemed to slow down. Many cultivators felt that each breath was as long as an incense stick. A while later, the cultivators began to become restless. Less than 2,000 breaths of time left. Why is there no reaction at all? Could it all be a hoax? I've said it before. It's very likely to be a scam. How many people in this world would really dare to provoke the 9 great forces like this? Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the others frowned. Very quickly, another 1,500 breaths of time had passed, and the commotion gradually began to expand. Stop waiting! The eyes of the 9 heavens supreme of the Nongyan tribe burst into flames as he said coldly, "They might have noticed something, so they don't dare to show themselves. Let's make our move and save them." Supreme Lan Wang and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes nodded slightly. They agreed with the suggestion too. After all, no matter how strong the enemy was, they still had so many 9 heavens supremes and the people of the ancient era guarding the place. It was impossible for them to kill the enemy in just a few hundred breaths. Such a pity. I thought we would be able to enjoy a good show. Supreme Rodeo twisted her lips. However, before she could finish, Qin Nan's eyes widened as a shocking feeling rose in his heart. He blurted out, "It's here." The 9 heavens supreme of the Nongyan tribe, Supreme Lan Wang, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were startled as soon as they heard the words. Crap! A few thunderous roars erupted from the back of the ancient city. A few bursts of power that seemed to be able to shake the heavens and earth were about to erupt. Unfortunately, it was too late. 9 sharp sword intents swept past the heads of the 9 Heavens Supremes at an unbelievable pace, as if they had traveled a great distance. There was no sound, no cries of agony. The crowd only saw fresh blood spurting out as the heads that would strike fear into the hearts of countless cultivators fell to the ground. 9 Heavens Supremes had been beheaded within a single breath. The eyes of the cultivators widened as if their souls were struck by lightning. No one thought the 9 Heavens Supremes would be beheaded in such a terrifying manner. Chapter 1829. Damn it! Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes were astounded and infuriated. They were shocked that the power of the person behind the scenes had reached such a terrifying level. They were infuriated because the death of a 9 Heavens Supreme was not only a great blow to their factions, but they were also infuriated. Moreover, they had mobilized so many big shots this time, and they had even come from Lianzhou. In the end, they still couldn't stop the person behind the scenes. It was like they were slapped in the face a few times. Not only were they humiliated, the incident was going to be passed down for generations to come. May I ask who is the culprit that dares to treat the 9 factions in such a manner in front of the cultivators of the 9 Heavens' immortal realm? A vigorous and powerful voice of an old man reverberated between heaven and earth. Soon, 5 old men appeared in front of everyone's eyes. One of them had white hair that reached his ankles, one had hair that was like fire, and one was like an ancient tree. They all had different shapes and sizes, making it hard for people to forget them with a single glance. In addition to it, Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes were no longer as magnificent as before. They were no longer the only ones standing between the heavens and earth. It felt like an indescribable mountain was blocking most of their light. Greetings, elders. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes bowed. These old men, some of the cultivators below who had barely regained their senses, felt waves of shock in their hearts. They finally realized that the 9 factions did not only send out 9 Heavens Supremes, they also sent out ancient authorities too. These old men have been hiding in the dark all this while, waiting for the right moment to strike. What a waste! Supreme Rideo's eyes flickered with a gloating look. Bang! A tremendous immortal glow burst out deep inside the 6 Unity Forbidden Land ahead. It surged forward fiercely like a tide. Even the extermination Yellow River was greatly affected by the terrifying aura it was emitting. Its water began to boil vigorously. Is it going to show up? Supreme Rideo's eyes glittered. The 5 old men remained still. Their eyes were burning like torches, yet their faces were stern. Soon, the towering immortal light stopped. What appeared before everyone's eyes were 20 black-robed men. Each of them was holding a strange ancient weapon with different musical instruments attached to it. The 3 men in black robes leading the group were emitting intimidating auras. Even though they were not unleashing their auras, it was obvious that they were 3 9 Heavens Supremes. Heaven-repelling ancient sect? Did you do all this behind the scenes? The 5 old men's faces were as calm as water, and no one could tell if they were happy, angry, or sad. The eyes of Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes flickered coldly. However, they were no longer in charge of the situation, thus they chose to speak instead. People from the heaven-repelling ancient sect? Is the heaven-repelling ancient sect really that capable? It's not impossible if the heaven-repelling ancient sect had already set up an ambush. However, is the heaven-repelling ancient sect trying to start a war? The shock in the hearts of countless cultivators in the 2 ancient cities was indescribable. Since the beginning of this great storm, all the changes, whether it was the level of martial power or other levels, were far beyond their understanding. They were only a bunch of onlookers. The only thing they could do was to be astounded. Cultivators, please don't misunderstand, I've only asked the people of the heaven-repelling ancient sect to do something for me. I'm the one who beheaded the 9 heavens supremes." At that instant, a calm voice could be heard. A figure wearing a black robe with an expressionless face walked out from the immortal glow, causing Qin Nan's eyes to widen. The figure was none other than Chiu Hong. Following it, another figure walked out. This was a young man with black hair that reached his ears. His face was as white as jade, and there were 3 faint red lines carved on his forehead. There was a faint smile on the corners of his mouth. If it wasn't for the extremely ancient aura that was being emitted from his body, others would have mistaken him for a young master from a great family. This aura, Qin Nan's soul shuddered as a figure surfaced in his mind. One of the 10 immortals, the beast hide drawing. The beast hide drawing had stolen the memories of his past life in his divine sense. However, for some reason, the beast hide drawing had turned into a young man. "May I know Senior's name?" The 5 old men did not underestimate the beast hide drawing because of his appearance, nor did they seem to be enraged. They brought their fists together and bowed respectfully. "You don't have the right to know my name for the time being, unless you wake up the people of your factions that are in deep slumber," the beast hide drawing said with a faint smile. Following which, under the crowd's gaze, he summoned an immortal table and a cattail hassock. He sat on the hassock. Chiu Hong immediately went up and took out an antique tea set, skillfully brewing tea. Not intentionally or unintentionally, the fragrance of the tea was so strong that it instantly drilled into the noses of every cultivator present. The cultivators had no idea how to describe their feelings at that instant. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes gasped. The mysterious young man was drinking tea and chatting with the 9 corpses of 9 heavens supremes whose blood had yet to turn cold. He had completely disregarded the 9 factions. However, they didn't have much anger right now. The reason being that the ancient authorities that were in deep slumber in their factions were actually stronger than the 9 heavens supremes. The mysterious young man dared to say that only the ancient authorities could barely talk to him. Didn't that mean the young man's strength and identity were? The 5 old men's faces darkened. A few moments later, the fiery-haired old man asked in a deep voice, "Senior, I don't think the 9 factions have any conflict with you, right? Why did you behead them here?" "Senior is indeed very strong. You must have reached that level when you were at your peak, but from what I can see, your strength has yet to recover. You haven't reached that level yet. You've infuriated the 9 factions. If a fight breaks out, you won't benefit from it either." The beast hide drawing did not answer the question. He wore a calm smile. He shrugged after drinking the tea. "That's true, I don't have any conflict with the 9 factions either. However, I can't help it, they are unlucky, and so are you. I've just returned to this world, so I need to tell the old guys that I'm still alive and the cultivators of the 9 heavens immortal realm." Chapter 1830. The heaven immortal in the storm. These few words that were casually spoken fell into the ears of everyone, but they were no less than supreme thunderclaps that fell down one after another. A supreme Taoism faction. The mysterious young man was planning to establish a supreme Taoism faction. Even though a 9 heavens supreme was allowed to establish a supreme Taoism faction on the surface, each supreme Taoism faction had to possess an insane amount of resources and strength. Since the ancient times, there had been hundreds and thousands of supreme Taoism factions. However, only 13 supreme Taoism factions remained after being washed away by the tides and the passage of time. Most importantly, once the 14th supreme Taoism faction was established, it might disrupt the balance between the factions, resulting in a great war. However, the 9 factions were not too surprised that the 14th Supreme Taoism faction was established. Most importantly, there was one thing that made the flames of anger in their hearts unbearable. The young man had set a time to behead the 9 heavens supremes right in front of them. The crazy move that shook the 9 heavens immortal realm had led many people to speculate about the young man's intentions, yet the young man was planning to establish a supreme Taoism faction just to tell a few people that he was back? The young man was not just disregarding them. He was provoking the 9 factions too. The young man was clearly trampling the 9 factions under his feet and humiliating them like they were mere ants. Even a man made of mud would be enraged, let alone the 9 factions that had been around for a long time. Senior, if that's the case, there's nothing more to be said. The debt of blood shall be paid with blood. The 5 old men said in a cold voice. An incomparably vast killing intent instantly swept through the world in all directions, causing the world, the void, the spiritual energy, and everything else to become incomparably chaotic. It was as if an ancient catastrophe was about to descend. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes unleashed their auras. The immortal island and the ancient boat began to emit blinding Tao glows as they began to accumulate their power. The battle is about to begin. Leave this place at once. The faces of the cultivators in the ancient city turned pale. They no longer had any other thoughts under the destructive aura. The only thought in their mind was to run for their lives. Even the peerless rulers present were no exception. They would surely die if they were involved in a battle between 9 heavens supremes, not to mention that someone even scarier than the 9 heavens supremes had shown up. I'll go get the body. Supreme Rodeo collected her thoughts. She waved her hand and unleashed hundreds of thousands of saber intents like ancient dragons to wrap around the corpses of the 5 9 heavens supremes. Under such circumstances, her sudden action would undoubtedly attract a huge amount of trouble. However, from the beginning to the end, she did not think about this point, nor did she hesitate in the slightest. Who dares to steal the corpse? Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were enraged. They immediately performed hand seals to execute their Tao art. F***ck. Doom cursed. His scalp turned numb. With so many Tao techniques, it was enough to destroy it hundreds of times over. Supreme Rodeo remained calm. She performed a hand seal and was about to unleash her Tao. Huh! The beast hide drawing suddenly noticed something. He looked around and locked his eyes on Qin Nan. He burst out laughing, ha ha, I was wondering why the gate of heavens showed up in advance. It turns out that you're the one who's here. He rose to his feet and took a step forward after finishing the sentence. Everything between the heavens and earth lost its color and turned gray. The Tao arts that were capable of destroying the heavens and earth seemed to be confined by time and space, preventing them from advancing any further. Hold on, give me some face and let me handle some matters before the battle. The beast hide drawing chuckled. His voice seemed to have some magical power. It immediately halted Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, the 9 heavens supremes, and Supreme Rodeo subconsciously. Qin Nan, do you know who I am? The beast hide drawing arrived above Qin Nan and looked down at him. His eyes flickered with disdain, as if he was aware of Qin Nan's cultivation. The man had yet to achieve the peerless ruler realm after obtaining the thing left by 9th brother. Qin Nan. Immortal Emperor Zhugang, Immortal Emperor Guqing, Immortal Emperor Gulin, and the rest of the peerless rulers who were far away from the battlefield were dumbfounded. The Heaven Immortals, Meng Jiugong, Zhu Yan, Gu Xiaoyao, Lu Qinin, and the rest of the exceptional geniuses were startled too. Supreme Rodeo, Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were startled too. The mysterious young man with a terrifying cultivation was related to Qin Nan? Judging from the young man's words, it sounded like they were quite close too. Who is this Qin Nan? The 5 old men quickly transmitted their voices. They had been holding back the anger in their hearts as they were intimidated by the young man's identity. If Qin Nan knew the truth, he would be able to solve the mystery. How would I not know who you are? What did you do to Chiu Hong? Qin Nan fixed his eyes on the beast-hide ancient scroll. Don't worry, it's fine. I only took control of him that day. Just treat it as raising a chess piece. I'll let him do something that pleases me in the future. The beast-hide ancient scroll did not say it out loud. He transmitted his voice with a smile. Since you're here, you can do me a favor. You need corpses to resurrect the two women, right? These corpses of 9 heavens supremes will be your reward. He waved his left hand. The 10 corpses of 9 heavens supremes turned into rays of light and flew into Qin Nan's storage bag. At the same time, he reached out his hand and grabbed Qin Nan. Qin Nan was startled, yet he was unable to stop the beast-hide ancient scroll. Qin Nan. The expression on Supreme Rideo's pretty face changed. Aren't you close to him? Are you his partner? Fine, you can come with me. The beast-hide ancient scroll raised his brows. He reached out his hand and grabbed again. At that instant, the sky collapsed and the immortal intent collapsed. A terrifying force suppressed Supreme Rideo and prevented her from breaking free. This immortal Emperor Zhugang, Meng Jiugong, and the exceptional geniuses were dumbfounded upon seeing this. They did not expect Qin Nan to be so close to such a terrifying person. Ugh, please don't misunderstand. Qin Nan and I aren't related at all. If any of you kill him, I'll give you a huge gift instead. The beast-hide ancient scroll was not willing to be mistaken as Qin Nan's backer. He looked at the 5 old men, Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the others after explaining. His figure flashed and stood above the rolling yellow river. His expression gradually became indifferent. Chapter 1831. The faces of the 5 old men turned cold. The fiery-haired old man uttered a hollow laugh. Senior, aren't you being too full of yourself? It's hard to tell who's going to die here. Following it, a terrifying aura surged across the place. The 5 old men, Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes immediately fought without wasting any time. The rogue cultivators did not want to stay any longer. They immediately flew into the distance and left the place. The peerless rulers turned into rays of light and disappeared into the rift too. Only Zhu Yan, Gu Xiaoyao, Lu Qingyin, and the others glanced at Qin Nan before they left. Meng Jiugong even murmured, "This guy's flesh of bad fortune is extraordinarily strong. He actually brought misfortune upon himself and got himself involved in such a great storm. Let's hope he can survive." He was quite disappointed that he did not have a chance to compete with Qin Nan. At that instant, Qin Nan collected his thoughts inside the light circle. He did not expect the unexpected change deep inside the 6 Unity Forbidden Land would be related to the beast-hide drawing. It even turned into a shocking incident in the end. However, on second thought, apart from trapping him and Supreme Rideo, the beast-hide drawing did not do anything else to him. It even allowed him to claim the corpses of 10 9 heavens supremes with ease. However, his eyes flickered coldly when he thought about Chiu Hong. Supreme Rideo thought Qin Nan was worried about the situation. She reached her hand over and held his hand tightly. She said softly, "Husband, don't worry, it must have a reason for capturing us. It won't harm us for now. If it really wants to harm you, it will have to do it over my dead body first." Ming Wang rolled his eyes. How could this woman still say such sweet nothings at a time like this? Qin Nan's heart was filled with warmth. He said, "I know that, but the young man it's controlling is called Chiu Hong. He's my brother. Right now, I'm thinking of a way to save him and get us out of here." His brows furrowed. There was no need to mention the strength of the beast-hide drawing. With their current strength, it was impossible for them to achieve this. Supreme Rideo frowned too. She said, "It might be possible if we're only trying to escape, but if, before she could finish, an icy voice could be heard in Qin Nan's mind, The beast hide drawing must be up to something by capturing you and giving you the corpse. There's no need to leave for now. When the time comes, we'll see what it wants to do in the depth. If it attacks you, I will attack too. It was Empress Feiyue's voice. She was watching everything that was happening. Qin Nan was startled. He thought for a moment and then nodded. Now, there was no other good way. Even if he used the mark of the god of war, it was very likely that he wouldn't be able to save Qiuhong. Meanwhile, the beast hide drawing's disdainful voice echoed in his mind. Qin Nan, you've already reincarnated, yet you're still as stubborn as ever. You're still flirting with each other even at a time like this. That being said, your talent is really impressive. It's not any weaker than Big Brother. I shall show you what kind of power the body of your past life has. Qin Nan was startled. He immediately looked at the beast hide drawing. The body of the beast hide drawing was his past life's body? Meanwhile, the fiery-haired old man's aura suddenly skyrocketed in the midst of the terrifying battle. His body emitted a blinding glow as he reached his hand forward and grabbed. A few thousand li above the beast hide drawing immediately turned into a huge flame with purple, crimson, and golden colors pouring down from the sky. The immortal force of the Tao-melting immortal flames in Qin Nan's body became restless, as if they had stumbled into a worthy opponent. Your Nongyan clan is indeed one of the heaven-blessed clans. If you cultivate the strongest 3 true Tao flame, it's comparable to the Tao-melting immortal flames. In fact, it might even be stronger. But you still dare to use it against me when you haven't even mastered it. The beast hide drawing suddenly came to a stop. It did not perform any hand seals, nor did it summon any artifact to defend itself. It simply let the 3 truths Tao flame devour it with a faint, jade-like glow. An eerie sight took place. The beast hide drawing's body was perfectly unharmed. The same went for the immortal robe he was wearing. Not a single drop of sweat could be seen on his forehead. This, the 5 old men, Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were astounded. Such a terrifying body! Supreme Rideo's eyes flickered with astonishment. Qin Nan, do you see it? This is the body of your past life, known as the first ancient flesh, the impenetrable sacred flesh. The beast hide drawing's voice echoed in Qin Nan's mind. Even though I've only acquired a third of it, it's still a pleasant experience. I have to thank you for that, ha ha ha. The beast hide drawing burst out laughing. It was as if he had turned into the only true immortal between the heavens and earth. He no longer used any Tao arts. He only relied on his flesh to deal with the enemy before him. So this is the body of my past life? Qin Nan felt a little suffocated. Actually, when he looked at the beast skin drawing's body, he didn't feel any sense of familiarity, nor did he feel any jealousy or envy. However, he didn't know why, but he had a feeling that he had been betrayed and that the beast skin drawing had committed treason. There's something strange about this man's body. I can't fight him at close range. You 4 use some secret art to trap him. I'll execute an immortal art to find his weakness. The rest of you, hurry up and spread the news to the clan. Supreme Lan Wang, Supreme Jingzhong, you 2, keep an eye on the heaven-repelling ancient sect, just in case they are ambushing us. The fiery-haired old man quickly collected his thoughts. He glanced at Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo, who were sucked into the circle by the beast hide drawing. He said after a slight pause, "If you have the chance, save that Qin Nan for me." The other 4 old men and the 9 heavens supremes were smart and experienced. They immediately understood the fiery-haired old man's intention. They spread out and took out their ancient artifacts. Meanwhile, the entrance of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land had turned into an unprecedented battlefield. Meanwhile, the news soon spread to the various factions and Supreme Taoism factions. In an instant, countless authorities were startled. Most of the factions even held emergency meetings to discuss the matter. Chapter 1832. Our Nongyen tribe has sacrificed many of our people to achieve what we have today. I don't care who he is, even if he's an immortal, we'll make him pay the price. We won't let this slide, we must get to the bottom of it. What a wishful thinking! Trying to use us as a stepping stone? Not on my watch. Tell the cultivators in the tribe to be prepared. The 5 of you, come with me, we'll ask the ancestor to show himself. Not long after, the 9 great forces displayed their terrifying strength. In the depths of their sects and clans, towering immortal lights rushed out from the 9 great forces. Ha ha, what a surprise, you're still alive. If that's the case, I'll go with you. In the 9 heavens immortal realm, in a deserted place, a giant claw reached out from an enormous lake of blood. Following it, a figure like an immortal mountain rose from the lake. That guy said the 10 immortals are still alive. They are still alive in a different way. I didn't expect it to be true. Well, it's fine, I'm very curious about what happened in the past. I hope you can give me an answer. In a vast and mysterious sea that was faintly golden in color, there was a murmur that alarmed countless sea beasts. Meanwhile, a formidable aura burst out from a river of bones with no end in sight. A pair of crimson eyes slowly opened in the darkness. It was the ancient taboo. 10 immortals, you've finally shown yourself after so many years. Even though my current strength isn't enough to deal with the one in the undying cycle mountain. However, I don't believe I can't eliminate you since you're ranked 6th. One skeleton after another rose from the river. Following a series of explosions, the skeletons turned into countless white immortal rays and combined into an ancient altar. Meanwhile, in a courtyard in the 3rd small world of the Sky Taihuang sect, the appearance of the 10 immortals has attracted the attention of many authorities in the Master Realm, including those from the 9 great factions, those that have disappeared, and those from the ancient taboo. Supreme Chang Shao paused briefly before adding, in at most half an hour, the 4th small immortal realm's 6 unity forbidden land will turn into a terrifying battlefield. In front of him, the old man whom he called Master muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "We can't get involved in this matter. How is Qin Nan now?" Supreme Chang Shao said helplessly. He's currently trapped by the immortal. Many factions have taken notice of Qin Nan's existence because of it. I'm afraid the information about Qin Nan has already reached the heads of those big shots. There were so many masters of Dao taking part in the battle. It was impossible for them to hide Qin Nan's identity from a mere heaven immortal. The old man smiled before he straightened his face. Either way, Qin Nan is a disciple of the Sky Taihuang sect. We won't be able to help him deal with the immortals for now. However, the kid has been bullied too much since he came to the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. According to Feiyue's speculation, Qin Nan will soon break free from the storm. Send someone to bring him back at once. Don't let those people touch a single strand of his hair. Affirmative. The situation was turbulent and unpredictable. Some time later, what the Beast Hide drawing had done was made known to the entire 9 heavens immortal realm. Many cultivators were astounded by it. No one thought such a formidable person would appear out of nowhere in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. Similarly, the Beast Hide drawing had achieved his goal too. Most cultivators started to focus on the 14th Supreme Taoism faction that was about to be established. After all, the birth of a new faction was a great opportunity. If they could seize the opportunity, they would be able to reach the sky in a single bound. Time gradually passed. The entrance of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land at the center of the storm. The battle was still ongoing. The impenetrable sacred flesh that the Beast Hide drawing had displayed was utterly terrifying. The 5 old men and the 9 heaven supremes had yet to find its weakness. However, the Beast Hide drawing only had the upper hand. It was unable to defeat them. As the 5 old men mentioned, its cultivation had yet to recover to its peak. It was not even in the Master Realm yet. The Beast Hide drawing suddenly noticed something. The smile on his face widened. You are in luck. I don't have time to play with you. See you later. He waved his hand and brought Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo back to the Six Unity Forbidden Land at a shocking pace. Trying to leave? The fiery-haired old man's eyes flickered with flames. Hang on, the clan has already sent us the message. It's not too late for us to go in after the seniors are here. If we go in recklessly, we might fall into their trap, an old man said. The old man nodded. The fiery-haired old man agreed with the suggestion. He stopped chasing after them. As for Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo, the scenery before them became blurry. A few moments later, when everything became clear, Supreme Rodeo's eyes flickered with astonishment. We've arrived at the gate of heavens. Qin Nan lifted his gaze and saw a spacious ancient battlefield ahead. The ground was covered in ravines that looked like ancient dragons. The auras they were emitting were utterly shocking even after being corroded for a long time. On top of it, there were magnificent immortal glows as far as the eyes could see. It was obvious that some shocking successions or artifacts had shown up. The beast-hide drawing did not seem to be bothered by the immortal glows. He flung his sleeves and withdrew the barrier protecting Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo. He said with a calm smile, "Do something for me. You can leave after it's done." Doom, who was inside the heaven-repairing cauldron, immediately let out a relieved sigh. His hanging heart finally calmed down. Supreme Rodeo felt that the beast-hide drawing's attitude toward Qin Nan was a little strange. He clearly disliked Qin Nan, yet he was reluctant to harm Qin Nan. "What is it? Can you let Xiu Hong go?" Qin Nan fixed his eyes on the beast-hide drawing. "There's no way I'll let Xiu Hong go. I've already told you that I'm going to put on a show between you and him." The beast-hide drawing said disdainfully, "As for my purpose, I don't mind telling you. I want the white-blue flower in your divine sense to influence something and open it." Chapter 1833. The Faceless Door. It had been a long time since Qin Nan heard the word trash. However, he was not too bothered by it, as he had already treated the beast-hide drawing as his greatest enemy. The beast-hide drawing hated Qin Nan too, but it seemed like the former was trying to prove something to Qin Nan, thus he did not do anything to Qin Nan. That being said, it might also be because of the white-blue flower. However, Supreme Rodeo was not willing to accept it. She said with a displeased look, "If you say he's trash, why don't you have the white-blue flower? Doesn't that make you worse than trash?" The beast-hide drawing did not become angry. He said in a self-mocking tone, "You're right, I'm indeed worse than trash in certain aspects. After all, this trash's past life was already a..." Speaking up to this point, he suddenly realized something and shut his mouth. Qin Nan frowned and said, "What exactly is the white-blue flower?" Even though he really wanted to ask who his past life was, judging from the beast-hide drawing's attitude, there was no way he would tell him now. Besides, with his current cultivation, there was no way he could harm the beast-hide drawing at all. He could only try his best to learn more about it. The beast-hide drawing glanced at Qin Nan and said calmly, "It doesn't matter if I tell you. The flower was born together with the impenetrable sacred flesh. It has a unique ability. It's the ability that allowed the flesh to sit firmly on the throne of the strongest flesh in the ancient times. However, Big Brother didn't leave the ownerless heaven pattern to you. Otherwise, the ownerless heaven pattern's power could gradually make it perfect." His eyes flickered passionately when he mentioned the ownerless heaven pattern. It was the reason why he had spared Qin Nan's life. Even though Qin Nan did not have the ownerless heaven pattern in his body, his brother must have made some arrangements so that Qin Nan could claim it in the future. The ownerless heaven pattern was his master's natal artifact. What ability? Qin Nan's heart shuddered. "Do you think I'll tell you now?" The beast-hide drawing scroll looked at him with disdain and said, "Stop talking nonsense." He waved his hand. Two tremendous forces landed on Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo. The three flew deep into the battlefield at a shocking pace. Qin Nan didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he looked at the scenery around him. A while later, he finally realized why so many 9 Heavens Supremes were willing to risk their lives to enter the Gate of Heavens. Each and every one of the strangely shaped treasures that were shining with astonishing immortal light exuded a world-destroying aura. They were definitely existences that were superior to Tao artifact. As for the other natural treasures and inheritances, Qin Nan did not know much about them. However, from the strength of the aura, he could tell that it was definitely stronger than the other magic treasures. This place was a land of shocking treasures. Of course, it was also a place of great danger. The traps and forbidding auras hiding in the dark, and the enormous creatures that were in deep slumber all possessed incredible strength. If it wasn't for the beast-hide drawing, even with Supreme Rodeo's cultivation, they wouldn't have been able to venture deeper so easily. "We're here." A few thousand breaths later, the beast-hide drawing came to a stop. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo immediately saw that they had arrived in a pitch-black forest. At the end of the forest stood a rusty copper door over 1,000 zhang tall. The door had 2 ancient words written on it, "Faceless." In addition to that, not far away from the faceless copper door, there were several people in black robes kneeling on the ground, motionless like statues. Even when Qin Nan and his crew arrived, their gazes remained the same. They were the cultivators of the heaven-repelling ancient sect. 2 of them were 9 Heavens Supremes, while the rest were peerless rulers. "Go to the door and sit down with your legs crossed. Don't worry about anything else," the beast-hide drawing said calmly. "By the way, I've already paid you, so you better not try anything else. Otherwise, I don't mind killing your woman." Qin Nan's eyes turned cold, but he did not say a word. He went to the door and sat down with his legs crossed. "Copper mirror, what do we do now?" Qin Nan transmitted his voice. "I'm not sure where this phaseless door came from, but I once saw a saying, once you enter the phaseless door, you will be reborn, and you will see the bright moon of the past again." Empress Feiyue's emotionless voice said, "It's easy to understand. The beast-hide drawing must be trying to reenact something that happened in the past. Just do as he says." Qin Nan nodded. Even though he did not understand Empress Feiyue's intention, he had complete trust in her. Time gradually passed. The period it took half an incense stick to burn was gone fairly quickly. A great storm took place in the outside world, but none of it had anything to do with the 6 Unity Forbidden Land for the time being. The 6 Unity Forbidden Land had fallen into an unprecedented silence. A few thousand breaths later, deep inside the Gate of Heavens in the pitch-black forest, the icy phaseless door finally reacted under the influence of the white-blue flower. The ancient runes began to glow. An ancient pattern gradually appeared, emitting a strange space-time aura. The 9 Heavens Supremes and peerless rulers of the heaven-repelling ancient sect were overjoyed. They chanted obscure chants and knelt on the ground continuously. "That white-blue flower of yours is pretty useful. It can wake it up in advance." Was it also the reason why my Supreme Rodeo's cave abode reacted then? Supreme Rodeo's eyes glittered. Her eyes flickered with astonishment when she saw Qin Nan nodding. She transmitted her voice, "I'll bring you to a place next time." As if thinking about the wonders of that place, her lips curled into a beautiful arc. She was absolutely beautiful. The ancient taboo is pretty quick. The beast-hide drawing who had been resting his eyes wore a cold grin. He did not conceal his murderous intent at all. "You hold a grudge against the ancient taboo too?" Supreme Rodeo was quite surprised. "What exactly is the ancient taboo?" Qin Nan could not help but ask too. "You guys sure have a lot of questions. I'll tell you since you've already awakened the phaseless door. Even though the 10 immortals aren't on the same side, we're all enemies of the ancient taboo. The beast-hide drawing's eyes flickered with disdain as he spoke. As for its background, it's nothing special. It's just a dog that barks and bites people under Tsong's command. Tsong? Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo exchanged glances with one another. They both saw the confusion in each other's eyes, especially the latter. She had almost become the strongest 9 heavens supreme in the past. She already knew most of the secret. However, it was her first time hearing the name Tsong. Tsong's existence isn't something you can ask about now. Don't bother asking. The beast-hide drawing flicked his finger and took out a scroll. He said coldly, "This is the map of the exit. You can leave now. Hurry up, don't let the ancient taboo find you." Chapter 1834. The Thing the Beast-hide Seeks. Qin Nan glanced at the scroll and memorized the route. He flew out of the pitch-black forest with Supreme Rodeo. Even though he was interested in the rest, he did not have the strength to take part in it. His priority now was to leave the Gate of Heavens and the 6 Unity Forbidden Land to bring Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan back to life. As soon as the two of them left, a grayish figure suddenly appeared beside the beast-hide drawing. The figure said in a hoarse voice, "Are you sure that the thing behind the formless door can recreate the great battle from back then?" The beast-hide drawing said calmly, "Heaven-repelling patriarch, you know about the battle in the past too. Do you think there's anything in the 9 heavens immortal realm that can preserve it or recreate it?" The heaven-repelling patriarch was left speechless. The beast-hide drawing said calmly, "That being said, you're only after the soul lamp. I'm sure we can find it for you." The heaven-repelling patriarch fell silent for a moment before he said, "Let's hope so. The heaven-repelling ancient sect doesn't want to fall out with the immortals just yet." The beast-hide drawing shrugged. He was too lazy to say anything further. His eyes flickered passionately when he saw the amorphous door emitting a brighter glow. Even its soul began to stir restlessly. He had never had such a feeling even when he was refining a third of Qin Nan's body in his past life. After all, what he was looking for was his master's impenetrable sacred flesh, which had been upgraded to the highest level, the indestructible flesh of eternity. You remaining evildoers, there's no place for you in this world anymore. Why are you still here? At that instant, a thunderous roar shook the entire pitch-black forest. Following this, 5 skeletal figures that shrouded the sky appeared and threw punches in the direction of the beast-hide drawing and the others. How did the ancient taboo come so quickly? The person referred to as the heaven-repelling patriarch was startled. The first rule of being a good dog is to not bark. The beast-hide drawing let out a hollow laugh. He fully unleashed the power of the impenetrable sacred flesh. A boundless glow lit up the darkness nearby. "Sir, you killed my clansman. I can't let you off the hook for that." However, that was not the end of it. Another icy voice appeared, followed by 7 tremendous immortal rays surging in from the distance. The enormous pitch-black forest began to tremble violently, resulting in countless gusts of wind. Even the formless door began to unleash an ancient force to resist the force. Among the 9 factions, 7 masters of the Tao-seeking realm had arrived. "Ha, you've come at the right time. I've prepared a big gift for you." The beast-skin ancient scroll laughed out loud and formed a seal with his hand. In the huge pitch-black forest, every ancient tree emitted a cold black light, forming tens of thousands of terrifying formations. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo both heard the terrifying explosions behind them, and the auras that were enough to make the heavens and earth tremble. "The various lords are here." Supreme Rodeo squinted and said, "Achieving the Master of Tao is indeed extraordinary." Qin Nan roughly realized what was going on after hearing the words. The Master of Tao was above the 9 heavens, supreme realm. "Let's leave at once." The attacks of the masters of Tao are extremely terrifying. If we're caught in the crossfire, Supreme Rodeo reminded him. However, before she could finish, Qin Nan's eyes widened. The demon heart that had been dormant in his body began to beat vigorously. Wisps of devil chi, which seemed to come from the primitive era, began to twine around his arm and covered his entire body. A faintly discernible feeling rose in his heart, as if there was a place in front of him that belonged to him, and it was calling out to him. Qin Nan? Supreme Rodeo was startled. She sensed an extremely shocking aura from the demonic chi. This is what Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment as he explained. The demonic chi suddenly reacted. Did that mean the tomb that Ling Lanlan mentioned was nearby? Qin Nan, you have to go there. I have a feeling that your past life isn't the same person that the beast hide drawing mentioned. Empress Feiyue's icy voice immediately appeared. Not the same person? Qin Nan was startled. If that was the case, why would the purple crystal appear in his mind? All right, I'll go. Qin Nan soon collected his thoughts. His past life had greatly influenced him. Either way, he had to find the answer to the mystery. Besides, the copper mirror did mention that he would not encounter any danger in the tomb. Mengyao, I'm going, what about you? Qin Nan asked after a slight hesitation. I'm willing to go wherever my husband is going, even if it's a mountain of daggers or an ocean of flames. Supreme Rodeo said with squinted eyes. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Supreme Rodeo was purely an alluring woman. How could she say something like that at a time like this? Most importantly, he was having a great feeling about it. Qin Nan quickly calmed his thoughts. He stopped looking at Supreme Rodeo's attractive face and calmed his heart to comprehend the mystical feeling. This way. Qin Nan opened his eyes and glanced to the west. There are a lot of traps along the way. Supreme Rodeo wore a cunning look. She grabbed Qin Nan's hand and executed an outstanding movement technique to float forward. From afar, they looked like an immortal couple. Time gradually passed. 1,000 breaths later, a white land appeared in front of them, emitting a deathly aura. Roar! Suddenly, a terrifying roar could be heard coming from the distance, as an enormous beast over 300 zhang tall made of countless bones appeared out of nowhere and walked toward them. A heaven demon beast? Supreme Rodeo's expression shifted. She wore a stern look. The beast was one of the 100 evil species of the ancient era. Its cultivation was comparable to a 9 heavens supreme. Most importantly, it was immortal as long as it had enough demonic aura. The only way to kill it was to get rid of the demonic aura. However, the place was boundless. How were they supposed to kill it? Don't do it, Qin Nan said in a low voice. When the heaven demon beast appeared, he had a strange feeling in his heart. Roar! The heaven demon beast's eyes flickered viciously. It sprang forward and went up to Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo at a shocking pace. It opened its bloody mouth. Die! Chapter 1835. Before Supreme Rodeo could perform a hand seal, 19 peerless immortal sabers appeared in the air and slashed at the heaven demon beast. A series of explosions took place as the beast was slashed into wisps of demonic aura. In less than a breath's time, the demonic aura rapidly gathered and restored the heaven demon beast's appearance. It was perfectly unharmed apart from its slightly weakened aura. Supreme Rodeo performed a hand seal. Following a loud bang, an ancient gate over 100 zhang tall appeared out of nowhere and suppressed the heaven demon beast. The beast cried out and struggled, yet it was in vain. Humph! Do you really think I can't teach you a lesson? Supreme Rodeo twisted her lips and said to Qin Nan, We can trap it for 100 breaths. Try it. If the drop of demon blood in your body is effective, you should be able to subdue it. Mengyao, you're very thoughtful. Qin Nan smiled. He took a deep breath and walked closer to the heaven demon beast. He stared into the beast's eyes. A strange sight took place. The ferocious heaven demon beast's eyes soon flickered with a hint of confusion, which eventually turned into respect. It lowered its head and let out a cry. It seems like the drop of demon blood is like a protective talisman. We shouldn't be in any danger here. Supreme Rodeo nodded. She was being so cautious because the heaven demon beast, one of the 100 great evil species, had already shown up before they even arrived at the tomb. How dangerous would it be later? Supreme Rodeo waved her hand. The ancient gate opened. The heaven demon beast glanced at her with a hint of fear. It then waved its giant claws at Qin Nan and did all kinds of strange actions. Qin Nan pondered for a moment before he probed. Are you saying, you can bring us to the tomb? The heaven demon beast nodded. Not bad, that will save us a lot of trouble, Supreme Rodeo praised. Supreme Rodeo complimented. She pulled Qin Nan and landed on the back of the heaven demon beast. The heaven demon beast twisted its body and uttered a few roars before sprinting forward. A few moments later, Supreme Rodeo and Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. The terror of this place completely exceeded their imaginations. Countless ravines had appeared on the white land, which intertwined with one another. Almost every ravine had one or more enormous creatures at the bottom. Some of them were in deep sleep, letting out long breaths, while others were fighting. Every time their enormous claws struck, a storm of gang chi would be stirred up. Even the heavenly demonic beasts were weaker than them. But fortunately, they didn't seem to notice the existence of Qin Nan and Yi Zichen and directly ignored them. What that man said is correct. The other places in the Six Unity Forbidden Land are truly frightening. A place like this, if not for those who have reached the Tao Mastery Realm, they would definitely die here. Supreme Rodeo said softly. She glanced at Qin Nan's face from the side. For some reason, she was having a strange feeling. She had almost become the strongest 9 heavens supreme in the past. She was on the verge of achieving the Master Realm, yet a mere heaven immortal had brought her to a place that even she did not dare to enter. Time gradually passed. Around half the period it took an incense stick to burn later, the heaven demon beast arrived at a bottomless cliff. It came to a stop and let out a whimper. The grave is just below the cliff. We have to go down ourselves. Qin Nan barely understood what it was trying to say. He exchanged glances with Supreme Rodeo and nodded before leaping into the air. A whistling sound echoed in their ears, and their bodies sank rapidly. Originally, the two of them thought that they would only need a dozen or so breaths to reach the bottom. However, this cliff was not ordinary. It was not until a full 1,000 breaths later that they saw the black soil below. They quickly stabilized their bodies and quietly landed. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo immediately looked into their surroundings. Their eyes widened following a glance. They were currently in a pitch-black land with no end in sight. The only thing they could see was ancient tombs of different sizes in all directions. This was not strange. The key was that these ancient tombs were encircled by black chains, forming 18 large and small cemeteries. According to Ling Lanlan, there should only be one tomb here. It must be built by the person behind the drop of demon blood. Why, Qin Nan's eyes were filled with surprise. I haven't found any traps or forbidding auras here. Supreme Rodeo executed a nameless eye technique and scanned the surroundings. She pointed in a direction and said, Qin Nan, there's a boulder below each of the cemeteries. It seems like something is written on it. Qin Nan immediately went forward and read the words one by one. Unfortunately, I was killed by some friends, and was buried here. There are a few successions here, to those who are fated to obtain them. A rogue cultivator, left by Master Li. Supreme Rodeo was startled. She said, Master Li? He's an authority who successfully achieved the Master Realm more than 10,000 years ago. He's already dead? She looked at the boulder of another cemetery as a thought crossed her mind. I have no regrets in my life. My name is Qiujian. she took a closer look at the boulders. Her eyes gradually flickered with astonishment. The 18 cemeteries were most likely the tombs of authorities in the Master Realm. If the existence of a tomb of a Master of Tao was made public in the Nine Heavens Immortal Realm, it would attract the attention of many formidable factions and authorities in the Master Realm. Besides, there were 18 of them. If the outsiders were to learn about this place, the factions would most likely pay a great price to eliminate the beasts outside and force their way in. Qin Nan quickly scanned the cemeteries too. His demon heart pounded heavily when he saw the second-last cemetery. This must be the tomb that Ling Lanlan mentioned. Immortal flames flickered in Qin Nan's eyes. He quickly went forward and fixed his gaze on the boulder. It was different from the other stone tablet. On the other stone tablets, the name of the owner of the tomb was written. However, this stone tablet did not. There were only 8 large words written in some kind of blood. The dead may enter, but the living must not enter. Even though the words did not emit any aura, Qin Nan could feel a chill in his heart, as if a pair of icy eyes were staring at him, trying to see if he would dare to force his way in. Qin Nan, this place. Supreme Rodeo came over with a frown. Chapter 1836. 3 weirdos, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo, were startled. However, Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. Ling Lanlan had already told him that there was a living person in the tomb. TSK, this little girl is so pretty. She looks like a virgin. Come in, I'll show you the true meaning of life. Another voice rang out, and the person who spoke seemed to be swallowing his saliva. Humph! You old pervert, get the hell out of my way. Don't be scared, we won't hurt you. That old pervert won't dare to do anything reckless either. Otherwise, I'll eliminate him. Come in. The voice that spoke at the beginning continued, the 8 words outside are purely to scare people. They have no meaning at all. Qin Nan's lips twisted. Bluff? Who are you trying to fool? Supreme Rodeo's eyes turned cold. It was her first time being teased like that. I'll go in first. Why don't you wait for me outside? Qin Nan transmitted his voice. He had the demon blood in his body. It did not matter how dangerous the place was. No, let's go in together. I'm interested to see who's trying to show me the true meaning of life. Supreme Rodeo was filled with a murderous aura. She grabbed Qin Nan's hand and dragged him into the cemetery without waiting for him to say a word. They did not sense anything special when they entered the tomb, nor did they sense any danger. However, the scenery before them was different. The tombs had disappeared, replaced by a transparent barrier made of demonic aura like a crystal. Behind the barrier were 3 ordinary-looking palaces. In addition to them, there were 2 old men not far away. One of them had sparse hair and a perverted look in his eyes as he stared at Supreme Rodeo. The other was lying on the ground with ragged clothes. He was drinking from a jar of wine without showing any sign of elegance. On top of that, there was an inconspicuous scarecrow under the barrier. It was only a zhang tall with a dim glow. It was drawing something with a branch. Qin Nan was slightly stunned. Ling Lanlan had tried to dissuade him. He initially thought the place was filled with a strong demonic aura and murderous intent. He did not expect it to be a place like this. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't see any danger at all. He just felt that it was a little strange. Ha ha ha, you 2 little dolls are quite brave. This is great, we can have a good gathering. Come, let's drink. The old man who did not have any manners laughed loudly. He was very excited. Come, little girl, I'll bring you to experience the boundless beauty of life, so that you'll forget to return, the old man with thinning hair said with a smile. Die. Supreme Rodeo uttered coldly. Everything turned chaotic. An indescribable immortal saber was about to slash at the end of the chaos. F*CK, why are you so violent? The old man with thinly spread hair was immediately frightened and prepared to run away. At this moment, an incomparably majestic force suddenly erupted from the three palaces behind the demonic barrier, shattering everything into pieces. Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo's eyes glittered. Ugh, I almost forgot. No violence is allowed here. There's nothing you can do to me, ha ha ha. The old man with thinning hair burst out laughing. He said with a regretful look, "What a pity, you're so pretty, yet you have such a bad temper. I don't like people like you." The old man wore a disdainful look. "Aren't you embarrassed? Come, little dolls, let's." Meanwhile, the scarecrow that had been silent all this while suddenly rose to its feet and said coldly, "Are you done fooling around? Didn't you know fighting here would strengthen the barrier?" The two old men immediately cowered and lowered their heads. The scarecrow glanced at Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo before lowering its head again to carve something. The old man said with a dispirited look, "Little dolls, we didn't mean to trick you into coming in here. We've been trapped here for a long time, so it's quite boring. But don't you worry, we'll be able to get out of here soon." Qin Nan was astounded. "We can't get out of here? We didn't see any resistance when we came in." The old man with thinning hair let out a hollow laugh. "You don't believe me? Try it then, even a master of Tao won't be able to get out of here." Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo immediately exchanged glances with one another. The old man with thinning hair was telling the truth, but even if a master of Tao could not get out of here, it did not necessarily mean he could not. After all, he had the demon blood in his body. "I'll try," Qin Nan murmured. "It would be troublesome if he could not get out of here." "Oh my kid, you're seriously going to try it? You're just a heaven immortal, yet you don't believe me. Sigh, the world is deteriorating day by day." The old man with thinning hair exclaimed, "Humph, kid, you're going to suffer if you don't listen to an old man." The old man said with a disdainful look when he saw Qin Nan reaching the exit, "I'm being kind. Let me give you a piece of advice, you should stop at once. Otherwise, with your cultivation, you're going to..." Before he could finish his words, he suddenly froze and his eyes widened. The old man reacted the same way. He could not believe his eyes. The reason being that Qin Nan had walked out of the cemetery. The scarecrow was in disbelief too. During this period of time, they had used countless methods. They had even used the method of burning their lifespan and Tao crystal. However, none of them worked. However, the person who was only a heaven immortal, who was like an ant in their eyes, was able to do what he did? Holy sh*t, how did you do that? The old man quickly collected his thoughts. He was extremely excited. "What did you just say?" Supreme Rideo said with an indifferent grin. "Ah, what did we just say? We didn't say anything." The old man with thinning hair blurted out with a blank face. He then blurted out in excitement, "Young cultivator, I felt like I had found a brother that I had lost for many years when I first saw you." Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo twisted their lip. The man was more than shameless. The scarecrow could not help but go up to Qin Nan. He stared at Qin Nan as if he was some kind of delicacy. How did you do it?" The old man with thinning hair harumphed. "Why are you asking that? I'll ask my brother to bring us out of this place." Chapter 1837. Land of Death? Land of Treasure? Qin Nan was left speechless. He said, "You don't have to do that. I'm only able to do this because I've obtained a drop of demon blood. Based on my speculation, I won't be able to bring you out." Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo immediately realized what it meant to change one's expression after hearing the words. The old man with thinly spread hair and the old man without any manners were disappointed at first, but their eyes soon flickered with disdain. Their expressions turned cold too. They no longer had the same enthusiasm as before. So it turns out that you're only good for show. The old man with thinly spread hair let out a sigh. He seemed a little disappointed. He seriously did not want to stay in this place for a second longer. Not only was he unable to obtain any benefits from it, the longer he stayed, the greater the influence would be on him. His cultivation would keep dropping. Are you saying that you've refined a drop of demon blood? The scarecrow quickly went up to Qin Nan. Its hollow eyes scanned Qin Nan up and down. It nodded and said, "Indeed, an ancient demon intent, just like this place. Cultivator, can you help me set up the formation? With the addition of your demonic intent, I'll have an 80% chance of breaking through this demonic barrier." The scarecrow did not forget to add, "Don't worry, if you lend me a hand, I'll give you great benefits." The eyes of the old man with thinly spread hair and the old man without any manners glittered. They did not expect Qin Nan to be useful too. Before Qin Nan could speak, Supreme Rodeo said calmly, "Break the barrier of the demon path? Aren't you trying to leave? Why do you need to break the barrier?" The scarecrow looked at her and said with a wry smile, "To be honest, with our current capabilities, we won't be able to force our way out no matter what we do. Our only hope is to break through this demonic barrier and see if we can find an exit from it." Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo nodded slightly. The scarecrow did not seem to be lying to them. "It's fine if you want him to take part, but you have to tell us everything you know. Once it's done, we'll give you 5 immortal blessing resources and promise you won't harm us. You have to swear an immortal demon oath." Supreme Rodeo burst out laughing. Her eyes curved into crescents. The two strange old men and the scarecrow must have surpassed the 9 heavens supreme realm. They might have even achieved the master realm. Facing such a powerful figure, as long as there was a chance, she would definitely take advantage of him. Not to mention, he had even taken liberties with her before. What? 5 immortal blessing grade treasures of heaven and earth? Why don't you just rob someone? The sparsely haired old man was immediately enraged. "You two brats, do you know who we are? How dare you rip us off like this?" Supreme Rodeo remained unmoved. She said with a smile, "I don't know who you are and I don't want to know. Forget it if you're not willing to do so." The old man with sparse hair choked for a moment. The old man with no manners snorted, "What do you know, old man? Don't worry, 5 pills it is. We'll swear the immortal devil Tao oath right now." They immediately swore the oath after finishing the sentence. "We don't know much about this place, but we are sure it's the tomb of one of the 10 immortals." The old man purposely emphasized when he mentioned the 10 immortals. He was trying to see the astonishment on the two's faces, yet Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo did not show any change in their expressions. It seems like these two brats aren't as simple as they seem. The corners of the old man's mouth curled up as he continued, "Of those mausoleums you saw outside, the remaining 17 were all built around this mausoleum. In simpler words, if someone attacks this place, the tombs will turn into a deadly formation." Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo's eyes flickered with astonishment upon hearing this. 17 tombs of Masters of Tao were used to set up a formation. How terrifying would the formation be? On top of that, from what we know, the body of the immortal is still intact. It's inside one of the 3 palaces. The eyes of the old man with sparse hair, the old man with sparse hair, and the scarecrow flickered when they mentioned it. They had attacked the barrier to leave the place, but the other reason was to get their hands on the body of the immortal. Among the 10 immortals, 4 of them already had 1 foot in the immortal realm. The remaining 6 were unbeatable in the master realm. The benefits they would get from claiming the body of the immortal would be unimaginable. "Oh!" Qin Nan squinted. The 2 old men and the scarecrow were intruders. They were not the living people in the tomb that Ling Lanlan mentioned. In other words, the immortal that the old man mentioned was not dead. It was very likely that the immortal was still alive. Perhaps the immortal was watching what they were doing. Upon having this thought, Qin Nan suddenly had a strange feeling in his heart. If the immortal was still alive and was related to his past life, why was the immortal not doing anything when he was already here? Forget it, let's not think about it for now. Let's break the barrier first. Qin Nan shook his head. He went up to the scarecrow and brought his fists together. Senior, what should I do? The scarecrow pointed at the patterns it had drawn and said, When I tell you to attack, use all your power to insert it into the patterns. It did not say anything further. It raised the branch and drew the patterns again. The old man with sparse hair suddenly thought of something. He asked curiously, By the way, didn't the kid refine a drop of demon blood? Can't he just go through the barrier? The scarecrow said disdainfully without turning its head, The drop of demon blood he refined, even the demon blood of the immortal in the tomb can't do that. That's because this demonic barrier is meant to block all external objects. Qin Nan agreed with it too. Passing through the barrier and entering the tomb freely were two completely different concepts. Alright, it's not a good thing for the kid to go in ahead of time, the old man with sparse hair murmured. However, before he could finish, the barrier suddenly reacted strangely. It began to ripple like waves with a clatter. The scarecrow, the old man with sparse hair, and the old man immediately wore stern looks. One had to know that the power of this demonic barrier was not ordinary. If it turned into some sort of peerless killing intent, then they would really be in danger. Chapter 1838. On the other side of Rodeo, is that? Qin Nan was startled, but he soon collected his thoughts. Could it be that the immortals in the three palaces made a move and allowed him to enter directly? The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. He flew forward without any hesitation. As he thought, he did not encounter any resistance when he reached the barrier. He went through it with ease. F***K-me. This time, it was no longer the two old men who cursed. It was the scarecrow that did not talk much. After all, during this period of time, it had always been studying the profundities of this demonic barrier, and it was extremely clear what sort of might the latter possessed. But how did Qin Nan go inside now? And how did he go inside so easily? Tisk, as expected of my husband. Supreme Rodeo's lips curled upward. She had no idea when it started, but whenever Qin Nan displayed an unbelievable side of himself, she would feel proud. Whenever Qin Nan was attacked and humiliated by others, she would feel extremely angry. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a strange scene took place. The whooshing sounds were heard again. The demonic barrier emitted strands of light that landed on her body. Supreme Rodeo was startled. She did not refine the drop of demon blood, nor did she have a terrifying past life like Qin Nan. Why would she receive such special treatment too? Could it be? A thought crossed her mind. She was overjoyed. She burst out laughing as she went past the barrier and arrived beside Qin Nan. Holy crap! F***K-me. The scarecrow and the two old men were astounded. They could not believe their eyes. It was understandable that Qin Nan was able to enter the barrier. After all, he had refined a drop of demon blood, but how did Supreme Rodeo enter the barrier so easily too? Ha ha ha, I understand now. The barrier has changed. Anyone can enter it now. The old man with thinly spread hair burst out laughing as he collected his thoughts. He turned into a ray of light and flew forward. A moment later, a loud explosion and a cry of agony took place. The old man with thinly spread hair was scorched black, as if he had just been struck by lightning. He was knocked flying and slammed into the ground miserably. Damn it, this god-damned barrier, is it a pervert too? Why does it favor women over men? The old man with thinly spread hair cursed. He felt extremely wrong. He had been roaming the 9 heavens, immortal realm for thousands of years. Since when had he not been imperious? However, He had already lost count of how many times he had embarrassed himself in this place. "Don't embarrass me!" The old man who was not behaving himself gave the old man a slap on the head. He then looked at Chin Nan and Supreme Rodeo with a flattering look. "Brother, how was our cooperation? Isn't it very good? Very comfortable? Even though we are making up for the time we spent together, I've already treated you as my brother. What's the saying again?" "That's right, we feel like old friends at first sight." Chin Nan's lips twisted when he heard the old man's nonsense. He quickly interrupted, "Enough with the nonsense, just tell me what you want." The old man's eyes glittered as he said, "I won't hold back then. Can you help us find a way to break the barrier?" The Scarecrow collected his thoughts and blurted out, "The barrier must be maintained by some kind of formation. If we can destroy it, the barrier will vanish." Chin Nan and Supreme Rodeo exchanged glances with one another. The latter immediately smiled brightly. "Sure." The two old men were startled. Supreme Rodeo added, "And 20 immortal blessing resources." The two old men and the Scarecrow's hearts skipped a beat. 20 immortal blessing grade treasures? Wouldn't that make 25 of them, including the previous one? Was this woman out of her mind? No, no, even we can't take out so many immortal blessing grade heavenly resources. The Scarecrow was left speechless. "The most we can offer is 15 immortal blessing resources and 10 ancient Dao weapons. What do you think?" Chin Nan let out a cough upon hearing this. He was well aware of how rare it was to obtain immortal blessing resources. And yet, they were able to earn so much just by helping them break the barrier. Supreme Rodeo frowned and said, "That's too little. Why don't we ask you three to lend us a hand?" The Scarecrow and the two old men twisted their lip. The former said sternly, "That's not possible. We can only lend you a wisp of our divine sense to help you once." Supreme Rodeo seemed troubled. "Well, I guess that's fine too." In addition to the Scarecrow and his companions, even Chin Nan was astounded. It was his first time seeing how Supreme Rodeo was willing to take advantage of the situation whenever she had the chance. "Come, let's go inside and take a look." Supreme Rodeo waved her hand indifferently. Chin Nan immediately looked at the three palaces. He did not notice anything special about the three palaces when they were separated by the barrier. However, upon taking a closer look, he realized they were emitting an imperious aura despite their calmness. Even 9 Heavens Supremes could not compare to their imperiousness. "Follow behind me," Chin Nan said. He headed to the palace on the left. However, he blurted out in surprise after taking less than 10 steps. He lowered his head and looked at his feet. At some point in time, a stone had appeared here. It was completely red and covered with irregular patterns. It did not emit any aura at all. "That rock," Supreme Rodeo was astounded. "Holy crap!" The eyes of the old man widened. "Isn't that the disk of the Heaven Wrath Killing formation? Why isn't it activated? Is it still in its initial state?" The other old man and the Scarecrow were dumbfounded too. The Heaven Wrath Killing formation was not a particularly terrifying formation. However, if a 9 Heavens Supreme tried to break into it, they would be hindered for at least a day. Most importantly, it was still in its initial state. In simpler words, someone had refined it, yet it did not use any of its power. Initial state? What's that? Chin Nan was confused. "It's something good. Husband." Supreme Rodeo's eyes glittered. She explained and added, "If you're planning to build a cave, you can take it away and set it up." Chin Nan was startled. Didn't he happen to have an unclaimed blessed immortal land? Such a good thing, but unfortunately it's too weak. It would be great if it was a little stronger. Chapter 1839. The place is full of murderous intent out of nowhere. A 10 zhang tall and 3 zhang wide statue of a demonic tiger appeared on the ground. It was colorful and filled with an evil aura. It was staring at Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo disdainfully, as if it was alive. K me. The old man cursed again. The 9-colored killing tiger array disc? It's in its initial state too? Supreme Rodeo's eyes glittered when she heard the words. She said, Qin Nan, hurry up and take it. The 9-colored tiger formation is strong enough to inflict serious injuries on a newly born 9 Heavens Supreme. Qin Nan was overjoyed. He immediately took the formation disc. He and Supreme Rodeo soon saw an ancient fan carved with some kind of ancient white jade floating a few zhang away from them. Damn it, the killing wind formation? Why is it in its initial state again? The old man with thinly spread hair, the scarecrow, and the rest of the terrifying experts were already used to cursing. The reason being that Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo were able to see a few formation discs of ancient deadly formations every time they took a few steps forward. As they ventured deeper, the formation discs that appeared gradually grew stronger. 2 of them even had the ability to trap and kill peak 9 Heavens Supremes. Normally, a place with so many ancient deadly formations was enough to be considered a land of death. Ordinary people would not dare to enter it recklessly. However, the place had now turned into a land of treasure. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo were around 100 zhang away from the 3 palaces. They were planning to enter the palace on the left first. Suddenly, the space in front of him shuddered as a fiery red badge the size of a palm slowly floated out from it. There's a formation disc here? Qin Nan's eyes glittered. He asked, Senior, what's this badge? He had collected 36 formation discs along the way, but Supreme Rodeo only recognized 10 of them. The rest were from the old men. Sigh, kid, you've already taken so many of them. Why are you still taking this one? It's only strong enough to take on 9 Heavens Supremes. It's useless if you take too many of them. The old man with thinly spread hair rolled his eyes. However, before he could finish, his body tensed as if he was struck by lightning when he saw the badge. The old man's and the scarecrow's breathing also began to quicken. What the F***? The old man with thinly spread hair blurted out in disbelief after uttering the word, Is this one of the 7 great primordial formations? Supreme Rodeo speculated. Her eyes flickered with astonishment. She asked, What are the 7 great primordial formations? Is it a formation that's effective against masters of the realm? The old man with thinly spread hair collected his thoughts. He took a deep breath and said, That's right, there are less than 1,000 formations that are effective against masters of the realm. It's one of them, and it's one of the best. Supreme Rodeo's attractive face wore a charming smile. She said, It seems like I'm quite lucky today. Saying this, she immediately reached out her hand and handed the badge to Qin Nan. Stop it! The expressions of the sparsely haired old man and the other 2 changed greatly. The scarecrow's tone became incomparably stern as it said, Such a formation also contains the true meaning of the great Tao. Even in its initial state, aside from the person who created it, anyone who touches it will be attacked. Supreme Rodeo wore a confused look. Qin Nan shook his head at her upon collecting his thoughts. It did not matter if the old man with thinly spread hair was right or not. They had already collected a lot of formation discs. It was more than enough for them. It was better not to be greedy when it was related to the existence of a powerful master of Tao. All right, let's head into the palace first, Supreme Rodeo said softly. Supreme Rodeo said softly. The glitter in her eyes felt like it could melt a person's heart. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly shifted his gaze away and continued forward. Following it, 13 formation discs appeared within 100 zhang. Each of them was strong enough to take on a master of Tao. The 2 old men and the scarecrow, who were trapped behind the barrier, swallowed their saliva. They had an urge to make their way inside. If they were able to acquire the formation discs and set them up in the small world they were in, they would no longer have to be wary of their enemies. Kid, perform these hand seals before you go in. We'll be able to use them to see what's inside the palace with you. The old man suddenly thought of something. He blurted out, otherwise, you won't be able to recognize the formation when you see it. He paused for a moment before adding, besides, the things inside the tomb of the immortals aren't something you should know for now. Qin Nan frowned slightly. The tomb of the immortals was related to his past life. He did not want anyone to see it. However, he nodded in agreement after a second thought. The mysterious immortal was still alive, thus it was aware of everything that had happened. Therefore, Qin Nan could easily ask it to intervene when the two of them stumbled into one another. The old man transmitted his thought. Qin Nan quickly performed a few hand seals and arrived at the entrance of the palace on the left. The entrance of the three palaces had a faint golden glow, but the patterns on them were completely different. The one in front of him had a pair of deep and evil eyes. Qin Nan was slightly startled. He reached out his hand and pushed the door open. Following a squeak, pure immortal intents burst out of the door. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo were startled. Their bodies tensed as they activated their eye technique. With one look, his expression froze. The spacious palace was completely empty. Only the walls, the ground, and the top of the walls were carved with ancient patterns. Inside the patterns, there were humans, beasts, demons, scenes of battles, and scenes of drinking and chatting, but most of the faces were blurred out. Only a few of them had a clear outline. Why isn't there anything here? Doom, who had been silent for a long time, finally found a chance to interrupt. What does a little beast like you know? The old man's voice echoed in their ears with a stern look. You might not know, but during the era of the 10 Immortals, there was a great battle that almost destroyed the primary upper realm and the secondary lower realm. Chapter 1840. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. Destroy the primary upper realm and the secondary lower realm? Wouldn't that destroy everything between the heavens and earth? How terrifying were the people involved in such a terrifying battle? Are you serious? How come I didn't know anything about such a terrifying battle? Doom was utterly confused. He had lived in the 9 heavens immortal realm for more than 10,000 years. Humph, it would be strange if you knew anything about it. Almost every trace of the battle was erased after it took place. I think only a book has complete records about it. The rest of the records are scattered. The old man said disdainfully. He's right. Supreme Rodeo nodded. She was saved by the gray-robed man. At that time, the gray-robed man told her some things, and he mentioned this great battle. However, the gray-robed man did not reveal the slightest bit about why this great battle happened, how it ended, what kind of people participated in the battle, and so on. Little girl, you know about it? It seems like you've stumbled into something incredible. The old man with thinly spread hair was slightly surprised. He immediately said sternly, even though it's only scattered, these paintings are still extremely valuable. Kid, you two shouldn't leave yet. You must memorize them all. Qin Nan nodded. He did not expose the old man's thoughts. He proceeded to observe the paintings carefully. He was quite interested in the paintings that were related to the terrifying battle. However, Qin Nan did not notice that the ownerless heaven pattern in his divine sense had lines of ancient words flickering on it, as if it was explaining something. Time passed bit by bit. For some reason, the paintings here clearly did not have any aura, nor did they possess any power. However, when one looked at them carefully, it was very time-consuming. Half the period it took an incense stick to burn later, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo finally collected their thoughts. They walked out of the palace and headed to the palace in the middle. Normally, the palace in the middle was the most important one. It was also where the main tomb of the cemeteries was located. As such, Qin Nan felt a little stern. He took a deep breath and pushed the palace with all his might. However, he was stunned as soon as he pushed it. He only felt as if he was pushing an ancient mountain. No matter how he used his strength, he was unable to move it in the slightest. Qin Nan tried a few more times. Even after using all the immortal power in his body, it was still the same. "Let me try," Supreme Rodeo said softly. She unleashed the formidable force in her body and pushed forward. However, the golden door did not show any reaction. It did not even budge. This, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo frowned at the same time. This shouldn't be happening. The two old men and the scarecrow were also confused. After all, the fact that Qin Nan had refined a drop of devil blood, and the fact that the demonic barrier had opened on its own accord, they would never believe that it had nothing to do with the immortal from the great necropolis. But why couldn't he push open the door? Could it be that the immortal doesn't want to see me? A thought flashed through Qin Nan's mind. However, since he had given him the demonic blood and deliberately lured him here, why didn't he see him? No matter how you look at it, it doesn't make any sense. Let's take a look at the third palace. Qin Nan shook his head. He proceeded to the other side without overthinking it. A few moments later, the two stood in front of the third palace. Qin Nan unleashed all the immortal force in his body and pushed forward. This time, there was no resistance. The door slowly opened with a familiar squeak. The two old men and the scarecrow let out relieved sighs. They would be in great trouble if they failed to open the third palace. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo held their breaths and went into the palace. Unlike the first palace, it was pitch black inside. Even with their eye technique, they could only see around 10 zhang away. "You two, be careful." The two old men could not help but warn them. If the palace was the main tomb, it would surely be filled with terrifying danger. "Is that?" Supreme Rodeo suddenly came to a stop. Qin Nan turned around and saw a crystal coffin on the right. They could see an old man with snow-white hair and a peaceful expression in a long robe with dragon patterns lying inside the coffin. Could that be the immortal? The two old men and the scarecrow were startled. That can't be right. The scarecrow collected his thoughts and said, "It's old man Q-Sword's body. I saw his portrait in the Sword Palace where his descendants stayed. It looks exactly the same." Q-Sword? Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo immediately thought of the remaining 17 mausoleums. One of the tombs belonged to an authority in the Master Realm called Q-Sword. However, they had never expected that he would be buried here, and in such a simple manner. "There's another coffin." Supreme Rodeo went forward. Her vision cleared up slightly. She soon saw the second crystal coffin. However, she soon blurted out, "No, there are 9 of them." Qin Nan was startled. He immediately went forward. 9 crystal coffins of different heights were placed upside down on the ground. Several figures were lying inside them. Some were old men, some were young women. Some were calm, some were murderous, and some were infuriated. Qin Nan's shoulders sank when he felt a great pressure approaching him. Although these people had completely fallen and the crystal coffin had sealed everything, the trace of pressure that leaked out of the void was already extremely terrifying. "Holy crap!" The two old men and the scarecrow blurted out in astonishment. "The corpses of the people outside are all buried here." They felt a great chill running down their spines as they recalled something. If an expert in the Master Realm left a tomb for himself before his death, even if an immortal used it, he would not bury himself in such a simple way. Even if someone would do that, it would be extremely rare. In other words, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo were dumbfounded too. It was their first time seeing the coffins of 10 authorities in the Master Realm at the same time, let alone the former. Wait, something doesn't feel right. Why aren't there any forbidding auras on the crystal coffins? The Scarecrow suddenly noticed something. No forbidding auras? Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo were startled. Even ordinary human immortals would place lots of forbidding auras on their coffins if they were still alive to prepare a tomb for themselves, let alone authorities in the Master Realm. No forbidding auras, a thought suddenly crossed Qin Nan's mind. Even his breathing had become slightly hurried. Chapter 1841. The split-second saber art. They were talking about the corpses of authorities in the Master Realm. If they were used to resurrect Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan, Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan's cultivation, talents, and potential would surely reach a terrifying level. I almost forgot, according to the art of reversal of yin and yang, it's only effective on corpses that are less than 7 days old. Qin Nan quickly collected his thoughts. He shook his head. The 10 corpses of Masters of Tao had been dead for a long time. The corpses of Masters of Tao are no match for the peerless rulers and 9 heavens supremes. We can use them to resurrect Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan. Empress Feiyue's cold voice appeared. However, there are 2 conditions. First, they might not wake up right away. They will need some time to digest the Tao intent. Even if they are resurrected, it will take them some time to wake up. Second, the effects of using them are less than 1,000th of the corpses of Masters of Tao that are less than 7 days old. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. It was definitely a good thing if they could digest the Tao intent of the corpses. So what if the effects were less than 1,000th? Either way, the Master Realm was still the Master Realm. It was definitely more beneficial than the corpses of 9 heavens supremes. Mengyao, I'm going to take the corpses. Qin Nan quickly made up his mind. Supreme Rodeo was startled. She nodded with a smile without saying a word. The 2 old men and the Scarecrow were startled at first. Their expressions shifted as they collected their thoughts. The old man with thinly spread hair snapped, "Kid, don't you dare do anything reckless. There might not be any forbidding aura around them, but the 10 corpses of Masters of Tao might have been placed here on purpose. If you dare to touch them." Qin Nan ignored the old man. He waved his hand and summoned 10 immortal rays to retrieve the 10 coffins. He knew what the old man with thinly spread hair was thinking, but the mysterious immortal would not harm him. Furthermore, as long as Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan could improve a little after their resurrection, he would do it even if it was risky. The entire hall was silent. The 2 old men and the Scarecrow widened their eyes. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo did not proceed any further. They looked ahead instead. After several dozen breaths of time, there was still silence. Nothing happened. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo let out a relieved sigh. It seemed like they were no longer in any danger, as they had expected. F***CK. The 2 old men and the Scarecrow couldn't help but curse. Their eyes were filled with jealousy. Those were the corpses of 10 Masters of Tao, yet the kid who was only in the Heaven Immortal Realm had claimed them so easily. There was no justice in this. Qin Nan could not be bothered with them. He calmed his thoughts and continued forward with Supreme Rodeo. After taking a few hundred steps, Qin Nan finally sensed a demonic intent for the first time in the tomb. The demonic intent was extremely ancient. It did not scatter across the place. It floated quietly in every inch of the place. Supreme Rodeo wore a stern look. She unleashed the immortal force in her body. Qin Nan had refined the demon blood before, thus he was not familiar with the demonic aura. However, she could clearly sense that the will of any 9 heavens supreme was like an ant before the demonic intent. Without being exaggerating, if the demonic intent was aggressive, she would struggle to move any further. Is that? Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo came to a stop simultaneously. Not far in front of them, a stone chamber had appeared on the pitch-black wall. Inside the chamber were an ancient saber engraved with countless runes, 2 ancient swords with a faint blue and purple glow, and a rusty spear around 3 zhang long. The corners of the chamber were filled with strange grasses in the shape of dragons. The ground was scattered with faint blue stones of different shapes. There was a small stone block at the center of the chamber. On it was a handprint the size of a palm. Are these the artifacts? The same thought crossed both Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo's minds. Holy crap! The split-second saber, the silver brilliance twin swords, and the immortal destroying spear? The two old men and the scarecrow blurted out in astonishment. Although these three treasures were not even Dao artifacts, they were different from other Dao artifacts. Each of them contained a complete set of inheritances: the split-second saber art, the silver brilliance sword art, and the immortal destroying spear art. Each of them was once used by reputable authorities in the Master Realm. Each of them possessed shocking power. They were considered three independent Dao arts. Normally, those who had learned a complete art of Dao seeking were able to learn the Dao arts related to the art of Dao seeking. They could also create their own Dao arts by combining them with the art of Dao seeking. The other kind of Dao arts were the independent Dao arts. They were not dependent on any art of Dao seeking. They were obtained by the authorities in the Master Realm by chance. These independent Dao arts were usually stronger than ordinary Dao arts. For this reason, independent Dao arts were extremely valuable. Each one of them was worth more than an immortal blessing resource. Moreover, they were priceless. Split-second saber art? An independent Dao art? TSK, I didn't expect to find something like that in this place. Qin Nan, hurry up and take this saber. When the time comes, try to comprehend it. Supreme Rideo was well aware of the value of the split-second saber art. Even she was interested in learning it, but she was more willing to let her husband learn it. These two fellows' luck is too good, isn't it? They have been taking all kinds of benefits since they came here. They didn't encounter any danger at all. It's as if they were well prepared. The eyes of the two old men and the scarecrow almost turned red with jealousy. However, they were dumbfounded by the thought. They had been to many forbidden lands, treasure lands, and successions of the immortals, yet none of them were like this. How could there be so many benefits for no reason in this world? This kid, the two old men and the scarecrow glanced at Qin Nan's figure with thoughtful looks. In the beginning, they thought Qin Nan was just a lucky guy, but now they no longer had the same thought. Qin Nan waved his hand and said without hesitation, "Meng Yao, I'm going to resurrect Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan. You can comprehend it first, I'll teach you later." Chapter 1842. Meeting the seventh Immortal Supreme Rideo had explained the Dao-jolting saber art to him. It was quite a thrilling process. It felt like he was taking the initiative to ask for the Dao-jolting saber art. Supreme Rideo looked at him with an indifferent grin. A few moments later, she said with a smile, "How could I reject my husband's request? I'll be taking it then." With a wave of her hand, the instant saber flew into her storage bag. "Qin Nan, can you give me the spear?" Doom swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Even though he did not use any weapons, he was quite interested in the independent Dao art. "Sure." Qin Nan nodded without any hesitation. He put the immortal destruction spear into the heaven-repairing cauldron. He did not let go of the other two swords either. He could give them to the 8 Brilliance Demon Emperor and the others. "Wait, kid, look at the boulder. Isn't the handprint on it more than 3 inches deep?" The scarecrow blurted out excitedly as he realized something. Qin Nan took a closer look. The handprint was indeed more than 3 inches deep. It was exactly the same as the one on his left hand. The scarecrow blurted out in joy when he saw Qin Nan nodding. "As I thought, there's indeed a way to leave this place. You just need to press the handprint, and we will be able to leave the tomb." The old man with thinly spread hair and the other old man blurted out excitedly, "Brother, hurry up and press the handprint for us. We are going to go crazy if we stay here any longer." Qin Nan and Supreme Rideo exchanged glances with one another. The latter nodded at him. Qin Nan did not say anything further. He reached his hand out and pressed the handprint. Following a soft thud, it felt like some invisible chains had been broken in the tomb. The two old men and the scarecrow took a closer look. They immediately danced around in excitement while uttering all kinds of words. Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo shrugged. They left the chamber and proceeded to the front of the hall. After walking for less than 100 steps, the two of them shuddered at the same time. They felt as if there was an invisible barrier in front of them, blocking them. The devil will that had been quietly floating in every inch of the space suddenly fluctuated and fell 3 feet in front of them, slowly condensing into a line of large devil chi words. One person stopped while the other moved forward. Is it finally here? White flames danced in Qin Nan's eyes. Ever since they entered the mausoleum, the two elders and the scarecrow had sensed something strange. He had also sensed it. Everything felt like someone had purposely left them here and gifted them to him in a different way. The only person who could do all this was that immortal. Little husband, I'll wait for you outside. Be careful. Supreme Rodeo knew she was the one who had to stop. She reminded her before heading for the exit. Qin Nan took a deep breath and got rid of all the thoughts in his mind. He walked forward and gradually merged into the darkness. At this moment, outside the main hall. Why did you come out? The two old men and the scarecrow were startled when they saw Supreme Rodeo coming out. The old man squinted as he sensed the aura. The art was blocked off by some force. He was unable to see what Qin Nan had encountered. It's his fortunate encounter, Supreme Rodeo said with a calm smile. On the other hand, why aren't you leaving since you're allowed to leave? I'll give you the badge now. You can just bring the things to me when they're ready. The old man and the scarecrow let out a cough. The eyes of the old man with thinly spread hair flickered. He said with an awkward tone, Well, I'm not used to it all of a sudden. I'm not in a rush to leave. Supreme Rodeo wore a disdainful look, yet she was too lazy to say anything. The three had purposely stayed behind, as they were aware that something was not right, thus they were eager to learn the secrets that Qin Nan possessed. However, how can you pry into her little husband's secret? Meanwhile, deep inside the main hall, Qin Nan slowly walked forward. He was having an indescribable feeling. The temperature in the surroundings seemed to have dropped significantly too. He somehow felt like he was wearing too thin today. He soon reached the end. An ancient door made of sandalwood appeared in front of him. He stood still for a few breaths' time before he pushed the door open and walked into it. Everything suddenly became brighter. It was no longer pitch black. Qin Nan was stunned when he saw the scene before him. He found himself in a small courtyard. The surroundings were planted with all kinds of strange flowers and plants. The place was filled with the fragrance of flowers. A willow tree was planted at the center of the courtyard. Under the tree was a stone table with a tea set made of immortal jade. A young man with light green short hair, sharp brows, starry eyes, fair skin, and dressed in a white robe was holding a cup of immortal tea with his eyes closed, and he seemed to be savoring the aftertaste of the tea. Qin Nan had to admit that the scene was completely different than what he had imagined. After all, the man was a demon cultivator among the 10 immortals, yet he did not look like a demon cultivator at all. However, Qin Nan did not notice that the heaven-repairing cauldron in his body was encapsulated by an invisible force. Doom was utterly confused. What exactly happened? Why did he lose contact with Qin Nan? The young man slowly opened his eyes and looked at Qin Nan. He withheld the emotions in his heart and wore a gentle smile. Senior, please have a seat. It's your first time here, yet you've already robbed a third of my belongings. Qin Nan collected his thoughts. He felt a little awkward. He had no idea what to say. He nodded and sat down. The young man said, Senior, I'm the 7th immortal among the 10 immortals, a demon cultivator. It's not the right time yet, so I won't tell you my real name. Qin Nan frowned. It was the same as the divine god of battle. He still did not know the divine god of battle's real name. Who exactly was my past life? Qin Nan said. That was what he wanted to know the most. Once he learned the answer, he might be able to solve all the mysteries. The young man did not speak right away. His gaze deepened as if he had transcended time and space. He said, "You're giving me an unbelievable feeling, but I think you shouldn't listen to our conversation. How does that sound?" Empress Feiyue's cold voice soon appeared, sure. She was straightforward. The young man looked at Qin Nan with a respectful look. "Senior, your past life is very complicated. I can't explain it to you yet. However..." Chapter 1843. The truth. As soon as the words were spoken, it was as if time and space in the courtyard had frozen. Qin Nan's eyes sharpened. The immortal force of the Tao melting immortal flames in his body began to burn vigorously, as if they were going to explode at any second. "You're saying, the divine god of battle is up to no good?" Qin Nan did not do anything in the end, as a cold grin appeared on his face. "Don't try to sow discord on me, it's meaningless. Besides, aren't you the ones that are up to no good?" The divine god of battle was the greatest fortunate encounter of his life. Even though the divine god of battle had only found him because of his past life, he would never be able to repay what the divine god of battle had done for him. He would not be who he was today without the divine god of battle. The young man let out a sigh and said, "Senior, I can roughly guess that you think it's all because of the divine god of battle. Little did you know, the divine god of battle has messed up everything. We were looking for you in the past, the divine god of battle was looking for you too, but due to a series of coincidences, the divine god of battle finally found you." Qin Nan was not shaken. He waved his hand and said, "I'm only here to learn about my past life. If you can't tell me, I'll ask the person behind it to show himself." According to Empress Feiyue's speculation, the drop of demon blood did not belong to the seventh immortal, Demon Emperor Wutian. It must have belonged to someone stronger. Qin Nan was leaning toward the same conclusion too. The young man fell silent for a moment before he said with a wry smile, "Senior, I'm sorry, it can't show itself for now due to certain reasons. However, Senior, everything I said is true. If you still don't believe me, I can swear an immortal demon oath. Or any other oath, it's fine too." Qin Nan looked at him expressionlessly. After some time, he said calmly, "You don't have to swear an oath. I can tell if the divine god of battle is good or bad. Besides, you are the seventh immortal, why would an oath work on you? Since you can't say anything and won't show yourself, I'll take my leave." Qin Nan turned and left. The young man sighed and hurriedly stood up. He bowed and said, "Farewell, my lord. No matter what, I hope my lord will remember this. When you awaken in the future, as long as you say the word, we will follow you in life and death. My lord, you must also remember that you must not tell anyone about our conversation today." Qin Nan stopped in his tracks. The fact that the seventh immortal was willing to go this far for a mere heaven immortal was enough to show his attitude. However, he believed in his own feelings. He trusted the battle god even more. In the end, Qin Nan didn't say anything. He walked towards the door and left the courtyard. What Qin Nan didn't know was that the young man stared at his back for a long time before slowly turning around. He bowed to the front and asked tentatively, "Master, is this person really the reincarnation of our Lord?" An ancient voice echoed above the courtyard as if it had traveled across the boundless rift. "If I wasn't sure before, I'm very sure now. Master once told me before he died that he has a great plan. Once it succeeds, he will return victorious and overturn everything. Even though Master is under the influence of the divine god of battle and the others, it's still a good thing. At least the divine god of battle and the others are completely wrong. They have no idea who Master is." When the young man heard these words, even though he didn't know the real plan of the Lord, he more or less understood a little. His pair of clear eyes suddenly turned blood-red. A tremendous demonic aura surged in all directions. The strange flowers and plants in the courtyard, and the willow tree began to wither rapidly as if they had lost their life force. That's great, as expected of our master. Following by Milord's side was indeed the wisest choice. The young man stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. Of course, among those people, the one with the most hope is Milord. All right, Master is now a heaven immortal. Once he achieves the 9 heavens supreme realm, he will surely awaken for the first time. The 9th immortal, the 6th immortal, and the people of the divine god of battle have shown themselves. Another group is on the move too. The ancient taboo is looking for something too. Therefore, you and I must recover our cultivation as soon as possible. We must at least recover 60% of our cultivation before Master awakens. The ancient voice added. Master's words make sense. The young man nodded. He vanished into thin air with a flicker. As for Qin Nan, the seal on the heaven-repairing cauldron disappeared after he left the hall. Doom wanted to ask something, yet he chose to keep his mouth shut when he recalled Qin Nan's identity. How did it go? Empress Feiyue said coldly. After I went in, Qin Nan did not hide anything. He completely forgot about the young man's warning. He had absolute trust in the copper mirror. That's interesting. Even though the words were spoken in a cold tone, Qin Nan could easily imagine the glamorous woman's lips curling upward or her eyes emitting an unusual flicker in her eyes. How is this interesting? Qin Nan rolled his eyes. He rubbed his forehead and said, I was only trying to figure out my past life, but it's getting more complicated now. Empress Feiyue fell silent for a moment before she said, I can tell you one thing. The 10 immortals are divided into 3 groups. The divine god of battle and the 6th immortal belong to one group, while Demon Emperor Wutian belongs to the other group. The 2 groups might not be like fire and water, but they would never be on the same side. Qin Nan frowned. The 2 groups are spending so much effort on a nobody like you. There must be a great secret behind it. Therefore, according to my speculation, the young master that the beast hide drawing mentioned isn't your past life. The purple crystal he took was only a disguise. Qin Nan nodded helplessly. All in all, there were too few clues. Only by knowing who he really was in his past life would he be able to understand everything that had happened. It's a good thing to have a powerful past life, but it might also be a good thing too. You don't have to worry about anything now. You should achieve the Peerless Ruler Realm and the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm as soon as possible to improve your cultivation. That's what you should focus on. As for the things you've encountered, don't believe them completely. Just stay calm at all times. Chapter 1844. The murderous intent in the dark. Qin Nan was startled for a moment, before a faint smile appeared on his face. You're right, in this world, becoming stronger is the way to go. Copper mirror, thanks. Empress Feiyue said coldly, don't worry about it, go look for your wife. The red string did not respond after finishing the sentence. Qin Nan was a little confused. Why did it sound like she was mad when they were having a nice conversation? Forget it. Qin Nan shook his head to clear his thoughts. With a flicker, he flew out of the hall. Supreme Rodeo was sitting with her legs crossed, trying to comprehend something. However, she was aware of Qin Nan's presence as soon as he showed up. Her eyes sprang open with a faint grin. You're still here? Qin Nan was startled when he saw the 2 old men and the scarecrow. Before the 3 could answer, a series of cracks suddenly came from behind. Qin Nan turned around and saw the 2 palaces he had visited were covered in cracks. They eventually shattered into pieces with a bang. The main hall in the middle of the hall suddenly became quiet. Why did they break into pieces? The old man with thinly spread hair was confused. He soon wore a fawning smile and said, "Young man, what did you find in there? Are you the successor of the seventh immortal?" Qin Nan's lips twisted. He did not speak. The three old men collected their thoughts too. Their faces were filled with awkwardness. Just now they were still a little anxious. Why would someone tell them such a thing for no reason? "Well, young man, can we discuss something? Why don't you sell the 10 corpses of the Masters of Tao to us? You'll definitely be satisfied with the price we offer," the old man asked sternly. They had stayed because they were curious about Qin Nan's identity. They were also interested in the 10 corpses. "That's right, you won't be able to use the 10 corpses for at least 1,000 years. The old man with thinly spread hair blurted out. "Seniors, I'm really sorry, but I have an important use for these 10 corpses. There's no way I'll sell them." Qin Nan shook his head. He looked at Supreme Rodeo before they could say anything. "Let's leave this place." Supreme Rodeo nodded without asking any questions. The two old men and the scarecrow couldn't help but become slightly anxious when they saw this. The old man with sparse hair spun his eyes as he thought of something and said, "Little brother, why don't we leave together?" They would not let go of the 10 corpses of Masters of Tao. If they were not wary of Qin Nan's identity, and had sworn an immortal demon oath, they would have taken the corpses by force. Qin Nan was about to reject the offer without hesitation, but the old man with thinly spread hair chuckled. "Don't be in such a hurry to reject it. The 6 Unity Forbidden Land has completely turned into a battlefield. You will surely suffer serious injuries if you try to force your way out with your cultivation." After he finished speaking, he flicked his finger and a water screen appeared. The scene inside the screen was the Gate of Heavens. Wisps of immortal glow took the shape of dragons, phoenixes, swords, spears, pagodas, etc. They were colliding with one another. Huge areas of the rift were shattered into pieces. The vast land was sinking into oblivion. The rules of the place were turned into chaos. Even though there was no sound or aura, Qin Nan and Supreme Rodeo could still sense how terrifying the battle was going on inside the screen. Following it, the water screen changed and displayed the scenery of the inner part of the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. Experts were still fighting one another there. Even though it was not as terrifying as the inner part of the Gate of Heavens, it was still a spectacular sight. In addition to it, the 6 Unity Forbidden Land was also affected due to the battle taking place inside the Gate of Heavens. All kinds of immortal glow soared into the sky as artifacts and deadly places appeared. It was a complete mess. It seems like the young man isn't the only one fighting against the factions. Supreme Rodeo's eyes flickered sternly. She said, "Husband, let's just let them fight together." Qin Nan calmed his thoughts. He nodded after a slight ponder. After all, his next priority was to resurrect Princess Meow Meow and the others. It was not a big deal. It was fine even if the 3 of them saw him. Let's go." The old man with thinly spread hair performed a hand seal. Immortal glow encapsulated their figures before they vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, in the outside world, the realm of chaos had truly become the focus of the entire 9 Heavens immortal realm. Many factions were paying attention to it. The authorities were using all kinds of methods to learn the secrets of the place. Similarly, many cultivators were still debating about the 14th Supreme Taoism faction. The beast-hide drawing's move this time was simply too shocking. The entire 9 Heavens immortal realm was in an uproar. That being said, many factions still chose to side with Qin Nan due to the chaos that had taken place. They already received the news that Qin Nan was still alive. He was still in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land, or the realm of chaos. As such, they secretly sent out some people to search for him. Long Xianling was one of the people they sent out. He did not dare to stay close to the 6 Unity Forbidden Land after such a huge storm had taken place. He had long fled to the edge of the place. He had the urge to leave, Yet his expression darkened when he thought about Qin Nan and the great calamity that might befall him in the future. He could no longer calm his murderous intent. Report. An Earth Immortal Realm cultivator rushed over with a displeased look. Senior Long, we've found the blessed Immortal Land, but the cultivators of the Emperor's ancient island and the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda were killed. There was even a peerless ruler among them. The Emperor's ancient island and the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda, New Qin Nan, had an unclaimed blessed Immortal Land. They speculated that Qin Nan was most likely in it, thus they had been searching for him. After all, Qin Nan's value was not just limited to the artifacts he had. Long Xianling was startled. He soon collected his thoughts and burst out laughing. He seemed to be quite excited. The Earth Immortal Realm cultivator's expression darkened. He said, Senior Long, what do you mean by that? Our faction is currently involved in the battle. We can only send out a few peerless rulers. There's no way we can catch them. We have no idea how long it'll take for the 9 Heavens Supremes to make a move. Qin Nan and the others are already alerted. They might leave soon. How can you still laugh under such circumstances? Long Xianling glanced at him. He slowly withdrew the smile on his face and said calmly, I'm aware of the situation. However, it's fine. One of our 9 Heavens Supreme has already arrived at the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. He will be here in less than half the period it takes an incense stick to burn. Chapter 1845. The 3 authorities were astounded. Some time later, deep inside a valley in the North Realm, Qin Nan and the others landed on the ground and soon entered the land of extraordinaries. Qin Nan, you're back? Ling Lanlan was the first to notice Qin Nan's presence. She immediately went up to him with a surprised look. She had been feeling uneasy for the past few days. She was worried that Qin Nan had died in the tomb. After all, she was the one that told Qin Nan where the tomb was. She would be responsible if Qin Nan was dead. And they are. Ling Lanlan's eyes flickered with a hint of suspicion. Oh, an innate Tao spirit, I didn't expect you to have something like that too. The old man's eyes glittered. Lanlan, I'll introduce them to you later. Take these things and set them up. Be careful, don't trigger them. Qin Nan took out the formation discs from his storage ring. The land of extraordinaries had an innate Tao spirit that could move freely. He was planning to refine it so that it would be his focus in the future. This is. Ling Lanlan's eyes widened. Her face blushed as she blurted out in joy, Qin Nan, you're so awesome. She immediately took the formation discs and flew into the distance. Although she couldn't tell the origin of these array discs, as a Tao spirit, she had a natural perception of this kind of powerful array. She could tell that these large arrays possessed shocking power. Qin Nan smiled and flew to the island. The 8 Brilliance Demon Emperor, Yuanji, and Xiao Shunliang were comprehending in the biggest residence. They were unaware of their surroundings. Blood Eye had recovered from his injuries too. He did not give up after learning about his situation. He immediately communicated with the natal Tao weapons of the 9 Heavens Supremes. He knew it was difficult for him to improve further on his path of cultivation, but he just wanted to improve his cultivation. Even if he had to move to a small place and live a carefree life, he would try his best not to cause any trouble to Qin Nan and the others. Painting of life and destruction? Unclaimed grave? A tinkling ancient temple? The statues of the 4 evils? And 2 statues of our ancestors? The old man's eyes widened when he saw the treasures. He could not help but curse. F***K me, did you guys rob a treasure vault? The corners of the old man and the scarecrow's mouths twitched. They really couldn't understand how this group of people could obtain so many treasures with their cultivation bases. Qin Nan, come up here. At this moment, a cold voice sounded from above. It was Empress Feiyue. She had already told Qin Nan that she would send a wisp of her will to handle the situation. Supreme Rodeo narrowed her eyes. She could sense that the other party was a woman with a very powerful cultivation base. Qin Nan took a light breath and flew up. The two old men and the scarecrow quickly followed. Soon, an altar appeared in their line of sight, floating in midair. This altar, the two old men and the scarecrow were a little startled. When they landed on the altar, the first thing they saw was all kinds of natural resources emitting mystical glows. A glamorous woman was standing at the edge of the altar with an expressionless face. The two old men, the scarecrow, and Supreme Rodeo were astounded. They could not help but admit that the woman was simply too beautiful, especially her temperament. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens, aloof and sacred, as if she did not belong to this world. "Are you Empress Feiyue?" the sparsely haired old man probed. The eyes of the old man and the scarecrow immediately showed a trace of vigilance and fear. They had to admit that no 9 heavens supreme was worthy of their attention after reaching their level of cultivation, but this Empress Feiyue was no ordinary woman. Empress Feiyue? Supreme Rodeo's eyes flickered with astonishment. She had already heard all kinds of news about Empress Feiyue during this period of time. However, wasn't she not allowed to enter the 4th small immortal realm? Why was she making an exception now? Having this thought, she immediately realized that her little husband was quite close to Empress Feiyue. "Copper Mirror, I'm counting on you." Qin Nan straightened his face. He took out the natural resources, the coffins of the Masters of Tao, and the corpses of the 9 heavens supremes. He used his divine sense to trigger the ownerless heaven pattern to release the crystal too. Such a strange presence of soul? How did you do it? Wait, what are you going to do with the corpses of the Masters of Tao? The old man with thinly spread hair quickly collected his thoughts. He blurted out, "The value of the corpses is beyond your imagination, you can't." Before he could finish, Empress Feiyue glanced at him coldly. "Your cultivation is no longer as strong as it used to be. If you dare to say another word, you will die here today." Saying this, she withdrew her gaze and ignored the 3 cultivators. She performed a series of hand seals with her snow-white hands, summoning immortal rays into the altar. The old man with thinly spread hair, the old man without any manners, and the scarecrow were infuriated. However, they soon wore wry smiles and felt a little awkward too. They did not doubt that Empress Feiyue had the ability to do so. However, wasn't she being a little too unreasonable? She should at least show some respect to them since they were her seniors. "No, we must stop them. We can't let them waste the corpses of the Masters of Tao." The old man with thinly spread hair and the old man without any manners had the same thought. However, at that instant, they saw the natural resources exploding into pieces and turning into rays of light flowing into the pitch-black crystal and the 10 coffins. The altar was fully activated at this moment. A mystical, indescribable aura of life and death burst out of the altar. Is this the legendary art of reversal of yin and yang? The scarecrow surprisingly lost his composure. He took a few steps back. He could not believe his eyes. Is it really the art of reversal of yin and yang? The 2 old men were dumbfounded too. The others might not know, but they clearly knew that the art of reversal of yin and yang was invented by the 4th-ranked immortal among the 10 immortals. Besides, the 10 immortals of the ancient era were still alive. They had more or less heard about the happenings of the 10 immortals over the years. However, they had never heard anything about the 4th immortal. Chapter 1846. The Immortal in the Graveyard, the 4th Immortal, Empress Feiyue, and the Artifacts. This kid's background is extraordinarily terrifying. The 2 old men and the scarecrow exchanged glances with one another. They could see the stern look in each other's eyes. They finally began to treat Qin Nan seriously. Speaking of which, rumors say that the art of yin and yang reversal is able to reverse yin and yang and reverse life and death. It's not entirely true. If I can witness it today, it's worth sacrificing the 10 corpses of the masters of Tao. The eyes of the 3 old men glittered as they fixed their eyes on the corpses. They no longer had the urge to stop Qin Nan and the others. That being said, it was also because they did not have the 10 corpses, thus they had a slim chance of obtaining them. Otherwise, they would not be willing to use them. Reverse yin and yang, the order of the world has ceased to exist. The reincarnation of the heavens and earth has been broken. Empress Feiyue performed a series of hand seals at a faster pace. She wore a stern expression as she uttered a chant. For some reason, it was extremely loud, as if a great ruler was giving a lecture. Her voice echoed in the blessed immortal land. Buzz. The crystal began to vibrate all of a sudden. It felt like countless true immortals had appeared and were chanting. 2 glamorous figures slowly floated out of the crystal. Their eyes were closed. Their lips were curled into a faint smile, as if they were recalling something wonderful. Qin Nan shuddered. He stared at them with a blank face. Unknowingly, his heart stopped beating. His breathing gradually faded away. Supreme Rodeo sensed something. She glanced at Qin Nan and let out a sigh when she saw his reaction. Even though she had not spent a lot of time with Qin Nan, she could tell what kind of person Qin Nan was. The only reason he reacted like that was because Qin Nan had already engraved them into his soul. Time gradually passed. Some time later, outside the land of extraordinaries, whoosh, 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 figures flew over one after another. These people were from the 10,000-layer immortal pagoda and the Emperor's ancient island. Most of them were heaven immortals, while only 2 of them were peerless rulers. They did not move after coming to a stop. They quickly stepped aside and opened up a path. At the end of the path, Long Xianling and a middle-aged man with a calm expression slowly walked out. The man was none other than Supreme South World. Qin Nan, not killing you back then was indeed a big mistake on my part. However, your glory days will end today. Supreme South World murmured. He said calmly, wait outside, Long Xianling and I will go inside. Don't worry, I clearly distinguish between kindness and grudges. Since you've helped me a lot, I'll hand Qin Nan over to you. Hearing this, the heavenly immortals all heaved a sigh of relief. Supreme South World did not say anything further. He entered the land of extraordinaries with a flicker, followed by Long Xianling. Who's trespassing? Ling Lanlin's voice immediately appeared. Not a bad Supreme Taoism faction. Supreme South World scanned his surroundings. His eyes flickered coldly. I'm here to kill you. The aura of a 9 heavens supreme burst out of his body and swept across the place. The pure immortal intent in the surroundings shuddered vigorously. The land of extraordinaries was trembling slightly, as if it was struggling to endure the pressure. However, at that moment, a ray of light suddenly lit up in the void ahead of them. Streaks of killing intent descended upon them. A formation? Supreme South World's eyes flickered with disdain. He waved his hand. He was now a 9 heavens supreme. A simple wave of his hand was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. It was enough to crush most peerless rulers into pieces. However, an astonishing scene occurred. That beam of light suddenly became incomparably resplendent. Countless huge runes instantly interweaved and enveloped the 2 of them. The surroundings changed completely too. The place was covered in a gray mist. In addition, there seemed to be a supreme existence in the depths of this dusky haze, erupting with shocking fury, about to unleash boundless killing intent. What kind of formation is this? Long Xianling was startled. The aura of this formation was too terrifying. Even with his current cultivation, he was like an ant in front of it. The heavens' wrath-killing formation? Supreme South World's eyes flickered with astonishment. He said, I didn't expect Qin Nan to be able to get his hands on a formation like that. Unfortunately, I'm not an ordinary 9 heavens supreme. A peerless imperious aura burst out of his body and soared into the sky. A magnificent door appeared behind him, resulting in an intimidating aura. Open. Supreme South World moved. He split into countless afterimages. Each of the afterimages threw a punch forward, resulting in a series of shocking explosions. Not long after, a hole was torn open in the gray haze. Supreme South World harumphed coldly. He grabbed Long Xianling and stepped out of the gap. His cultivation was strong enough to shatter the formation, but it would take him some time. He just wanted to take down Qin Nan first. However, as soon as he came to a stop, two rays of light appeared in front of him and to his left and right respectively. They were trying to pincer him. Another formation? Supreme South World frowned. He looked at Long Xianling. That's impossible, a woman was the one who knocked them back when we first came in. There wasn't any formation. Long Xianling blurted out. It seems like the formation was set up not long ago. If that's the case, apart from the formation just now, the rest of the formations aren't that strong. Supreme South World nodded. However, his eyes widened before he could finish. The three rays of light suddenly glowed brilliantly just like the previous one. Countless runes intertwined with one another. The three completely different scenes were like giant beasts opening their bloody mouths and swallowing them whole. The overwhelming killing intent was like an endless tide that drowned them. The power of these three formations was not only stronger than the previous one, but they were also mainly used to attack and kill. They were all killing formations that were meant to kill people. Oh Qin Nan, you're indeed a man who keeps creating miracles, but it's worth it for me to pay you a visit. Chapter 1847. The situation was getting out of hand. The South is the supreme of the heavens and earth. Supreme South World groaned. The magnificent gate on his back shuddered and fired a brilliant light to shatter the murderous aura into pieces. He pressed a hand seal forward. The magnificent gate rose into the sky following a loud blast. It slammed into the three formations at a shocking pace, as if it had accumulated all the energy of the heavens and earth. For a moment, there were earth-shattering explosions in all directions. The runes of the formations were shattered into pieces as they stood no chance against the destructive force. However, in the next moment, these runes appeared once again and interweaved into a large formation. A formation that can recover on its own? This is getting tricky. Supreme South World's heart sank. He performed a hand seal with his left hand while taking out a spear covered in runes with his right hand to execute a peerless spear art. A few hundred breaths later, Supreme South World and Long Xianling finally came out from the three formations following a sharp cry. Long Xianling was relieved when he saw the sweat on Supreme South World's forehead. He murmured, "Luckily, Qin Nan and Supreme South World are enemies too. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to kill Qin Nan today." Supreme South World did not hesitate. His eyes emitted a blinding blue glow as soon as he came out from the formations. He was about to attack with his spear again. At that instant, the voice that they had heard previously was heard once again, with a hint of coldness. "Humph, you're quite capable to be able to pass the first two trials. No wonder you dare to say you're going to kill us. However, I would like to see if you can pass the third stage." Supreme South World and Long Xianling were startled upon hearing the words. There was a third stage? Was there another formation? In the sky, a total of 10 rays of light were emitted as countless runes appeared. An aura stronger than the previous 4 formations swept across the place. 5 Martial Illusionary Formation, Jade Emperor Sky-Suppressing Formation, Dragon Snake Dao Performing Formation. Even Supreme South World was startled. Long Xuanling's face turned extremely pale. Just one of them was enough to crush him into dust, let alone 10 of them. It's only 10 formations and you're already so surprised? Ling Lanlan's voice appeared again. Around the 10 rays of light, a total of 20 rays of light shone at the same time. Among them, 2 rays of light were like ancient suns. They were extremely eye-catching and illuminated the surroundings. The other rays of light could not compare to them. This Supreme South World's expression shifted. He did not expect Qin Nan's blessed immortal land to have so many terrifying formations. In particular, 2 of the grand arrays even made him feel a bone-piercing chill. Time gradually passed. Empress Feiyue was still performing all kinds of hand seals while uttering a few chants. Different rare phenomena were taking place around her. Reversing yin and yang and altering life and death was considered crossing the Tao. It would take some time for her to resolve it. As for Qin Nan, his gaze had completely merged with the 2 glamorous figures. The 2 old men, the Scarecrow and Supreme Rodeo, were focusing on sensing the changes of the laws. As a matter of fact, they had already sensed Supreme South World and Long Xuanling's arrival, yet they were too lazy to bother with the formations. A while later, outside the land of extraordinaries, 2 figures suddenly descended from the sky. Their overwhelming auras shook the ground nearby. The Heaven Immortals and peerless rulers of the 2 factions were startled. "Greetings, Supreme Elder." Everyone hurriedly bowed. The 2 figures were none other than the 9 Heavens Supremes of the 10,000-layer Immortal Pagoda and the Emperor's ancient island. Even though the authorities of the 2 factions were taking part in the battle deep inside the 6 Unity Forbidden Land, they had only come in a hurry after considering Qin Nan's uniqueness. The hot-tempered 9 Heavens Supreme of the Emperor's ancient island, whose robe was stained with blood, glanced around and snapped, "You bunch of idiots! How could you let them go in first? They have been in there for so long, yet they still haven't come out. I'm afraid Qin Nan has already been abducted." The Heaven Immortals and peerless rulers could only smile wryly. They were well aware of Supreme South World's strength. He could easily take Qin Nan down in less than 50 breaths, yet he had yet to come out. Something must be wrong. Yet what could they possibly do? The other 9 Heavens Supreme frowned and said, "That's enough, let's go in together." The 2 9 Heavens Supremes led the way, followed by the rest of the peerless rulers and Heaven Immortals. Is that? The 2 9 Heavens Supremes were startled as soon as they entered the place. The peerless rulers and Heaven Immortals were startled too. 20 different rare phenomena were taking place in front of them, as if 20 small worlds were spreading out in front of them. In their hearts, Supreme South World was like a peerless deity, yet he was only emitting a faint glow under the strong murderous intent. It felt like he was going to be drowned by the strong waves in the next second. Supreme South World turned around as if he sensed something. His pale face was filled with joy when he saw the figure. He yelled, "Fellow cultivators, let's work together and open up a gap. Otherwise, we are all going to die here today." The 2 9 Heavens Supremes wore twisted expressions upon collecting their thoughts. They did not expect a mere Qin Nan to have such outstanding capabilities to set up so many deadly formations. Besides, it was too late for them to back away now. They were already trapped in the formations. They had no choice but to say, "All right, let's work together." The 2 9 Heavens Supremes immediately unleashed a tremendous immortal glow to protect the Heaven Immortals and peerless rulers behind them. They executed their arts of Tao seeking and unleashed their Tao weapons in all directions. Strong gusts of wind rose into the air. A series of Tao arts and immortal arts were executed. This extremely shocking exchange lasted for a full hour before a small dot of light appeared among the many strange phenomena. However, the light dot immediately energized Supreme South World, the other 2 9 Heavens Supremes, Long Xianling, and the others. Chapter 1848. Following a roar, the 3 9 Heavens Supremes were the first to charge out of the light dots, followed by Long Xianling, the peerless rulers, and the Heaven Immortals. However, the dots of light appeared quickly and closed quickly as well. The 20-odd heavenly immortals did not manage to escape in time and were immediately killed, letting out miserable cries. "Oh Qin Nan, how dare you almost inflict serious injuries on me when you're just a mere heaven immortal? However, the heavens are still on my side. You will die soon." Supreme South World was covered in blood. His murderous intent toward Qin Nan rose to a whole new level. His eyes were like ice that had existed for 10,000 years. "Enough with the nonsense. There are strange auras and rare phenomena over there. Qin Nan must be there. Let's head over now." The other 2 Nine Heavens Supremes were enraged after losing so many of their men. They immediately fixed their eyes on the altar. Long Xianling was the only one who was overjoyed. He would no longer be a huge threat if Qin Nan was dead. He would be free from now on. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cultivators immediately turned into brilliant rays of light and charged forward at a shocking pace like peerless swords. The 2 old men, the Scarecrow, and Supreme Rodeo, who happened to be focusing on the crucial part of the battle, were distracted by the auras. Their faces immediately turned cold. The old man with thinly spread hair appeared in front of Supreme South World and the others. "Who are you? How dare you stop me?" Supreme South World snarled. "Who are you?" The eyes of the other 2 Nine Heavens Supremes widened. They could not believe what they were seeing. They might not know who Supreme South World was, but they knew the old man was an authority in the Master Realm who had surpassed the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm. But wasn't the old man supposed to be in that place? Why was he here now? What happened between him and Qin Nan? Just as countless questions appeared in their minds, the old man with thinning hair coldly snorted, "You're so King annoying. Get lost." As soon as he finished speaking, he struck out with his palm. He did not perform any hand seals, nor did he unleash any aura. The ordinary-looking palm strike was enough to change the scenery before Supreme South World, the 2 Nine Heavens Supremes, and the others. The world turned into darkness. An invisible and terrifying power, like a chain that sealed the sky, tightly wrapped around their bodies, causing them to be unable to move at all. They could only watch as, at the end of the darkness, there was a giant hand that was as boundless as the heavens, rolling towards them. Long Xianling, the peerless rulers, and the heaven immortals were utterly terrified. The eyes of the 3 Nine Heavens Supremes widened as their faces turned pale. "Ma," Supreme South World blurted out in astonishment. He only managed to squeeze out a single word before the terrifying hand slapped him hard. Their figures were sent flying at an unprecedented speed. They were instantly knocked out of the land of extraordinaries and vanished without a trace. The surroundings fell silent once again. The old man with thinning hair quickly returned to the edge of the altar without even looking at it. A pattern of 8 trigrams had appeared at the center of the altar. It was emitting countless rays of light that were changing the rules of cultivation. The chanting sounds in the surroundings were sometimes high-pitched and sometimes low-pitched. The rhythm was strangely fast, and it caused wave-like ripples to appear in the void. The chanting had triggered the great Tao. Luckily, I'm not too late. If I'm not mistaken, what Empress Feiyue is going to do next is the most important step. The old man with thinning hair fixed his eyes ahead. As he thought, Empress Feiyue stopped chanting. She unleashed a strong aura that shook the surroundings. 2 illusionary figures floated behind her. A formidable aura of the 3 lifetimes spread across the place. Reverse. The tips of her fingers were cut open. Blood poured out from them as she slammed the altar. The heavens and earth changed color at that instant. The entire land of extraordinaries seemed to have transformed into an indescribable point of light before exploding violently. Fate, time, space, law, permanence, life and death, the 5 elements, and other illusory rules transformed into countless rays of light that flew toward everything. Empress Feiyue's eyes flickered like torches. She suddenly reached out her hand and shattered one of the rays of light. The eerie sight disappeared all of a sudden. The entire altar was emitting a blinding glow. At the center of the altar, countless rays of light slowly gathered and outlined the outline of two figures. One had fair skin and delicate facial features. He was wearing a golden robe with a phoenix pattern. He had an innate noble temperament. The other had short white hair and a faint smile. He was wearing a blue robe. Souls come. Empress Feyue waved her hand. Two illusionary flames flew toward the figures. She walked toward the two figures. With the first step, the altar began to tremble vigorously. With the second step, the rules of cultivation were disrupted and the light collapsed. When she took the third step, a series of terrifying roars could be heard, as if a giant beast that could devour the heavens was about to burst out of its fury. Empress Feyue pushed her hand forward, but it felt like she was pushing an immortal mountain. Every inch forward was extremely difficult. Her forehead was covered in sweat. Enter! In the end, she finally broke through the barrier. The two wisps of flames entered Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan's bodies. In the blink of an eye, the rare phenomenon completely vanished. Tiny streams of life force began to appear in the bodies of the two cultivators, which eventually swept across their bodies. Their hearts began to beat softly. Here comes the change, the Scarecrow suddenly said. Following his voice, a brilliant Tao glow burst out of their bodies. A strong Tao intent surged in all directions. First, it was Princess Miao Miao. A mysterious force in her body was awakened for the first time. Ancient words appeared on her forehead. First, it was sacred, then immortal. Tribe of immortal spirits? The two old men and the Scarecrow were startled. However, their eyes widened as the ancient words on Princess Miao Miao's forehead blurred and slowly formed the outline of a white, illusionary flower. Following it was Jiang Bailan's turn. The will of death grew rapidly in her body. Similar to Princess Miao Miao, the ancient words on her forehead began to change and eventually formed a faint, blue, illusionary flower. Chapter 1849. Not only that, but their cultivations had also undergone tremendous changes. First was Princess Miao Miao. The monarch force in her body instantly evolved into God force, which continued to rise rapidly. It broke through the human god realm, earth god realm, and heaven god realm, before evolving into immortal force following a buzz. Jiang Bailan's situation was the same too. Besides, the immortal force in their bodies was no ordinary immortal force. Even though their cultivation was equivalent to the human immortal realm, their immortal force was as strong as an earth immortal realm cultivator. It had even merged with the unique auras of the 10 Masters of Tao. They had truly soared into the sky. However, not many people in the 9 Heavens immortal realm were able to do what they were doing. After all, it was unlikely that someone like the beast hide drawing would preserve the soul of a cultivator after they died. He even had to use the art of reversal of yin and yang to retrieve 10 corpses of the Masters of Tao. Finally, Qin Nan's body trembled. He was supposed to be overjoyed, yet he felt like his nose was going to sting. He was having an indescribable feeling. Is this the bloodline transcendence? The two old men and the Scarecrow gasped. They could not believe what they were seeing. What? Bloodline transcendence? Doom, who was inside the heaven-repairing cauldron, was astounded. Every member of the ancient tribes had different bloodlines when they were born. It was similar to the beast. Those with stronger bloodlines would have better talents and talent. For example, to comprehend the 10 great flames of the Nongyen tribe, one would have to possess a powerful bloodline power. The geniuses of the ancient tribes were determined by the strength of the bloodline. That being said, diligence had always made up for one's lack of talent. The same applied to the power of the bloodline. As one cultivated diligently, the power of the bloodline would gradually grow stronger. Those with outstanding talents and luck might even experience the rare phenomenon of the bloodline transcendence. Once the bloodline transcendence happened, the cultivator's strength would improve significantly. They would also be able to master the unique power of their tribe to a higher level. Normally, the young cultivators of the ancient tribes who were able to achieve the bloodline transcendence were treated as exceptional geniuses. Above that was bloodline crossing. The so-called leap was not a leap, nor was it a transcendence. Instead, it was a great change that occurred on the basis of the original bloodline power, giving it unimaginable power. Among the ancient clans, including the 100 ancient clans, there were very few who could reach the bloodline crossing ancestor level. No. This woman with short white hair isn't a member of the ancient race at all. Even if she's a member of the Three Nether race, she wouldn't have such a death wish. How could she? The two old men and the scarecrow soon noticed something, and their faces were filled with doubt. The first ancient physique, the impenetrable sacred physique, will give birth to a white-blue flower. I don't know its specific function yet. However, they were fortunate enough to fuse with the white-blue flower. Empress Feiyue said coldly, "It must be the reason why Princess Miao Miao's lineage is able to transcend her ancestors, while Jiang Bailan is able to achieve the same level even though she is not a member of the primordial tribe." Hearing this, the two old men and the scarecrow felt as if they were struck by lightning. You're talking about the first ancient physique, the invulnerable saint physique? The two old men and the scarecrow were astounded. That was the first ancient physique. They were familiar with the power of the first ancient physique. However, they did not expect the two little girls to have such a great fortunate encounter. Copper Mirror, thank you for your help. Qin Nan calmed the complicated emotions in his heart. He wore a calm smile and brought his fists together at Empress Feiyue. His mind was clear now. His past life, or anything else, was no longer in his mind. The reason being, they were still alive. Buzz. At that instant, wisps of Tao intent burst out of Qin Nan's body on their own. The divine battle spirit deep within his soul shuddered violently. The light within his body began to glow, and its glow grew stronger. Not bad, you've just resolved a knot in your heart, and you're about to achieve the greater success stage of the Tao realm. The two old men and the scarecrow collected their thoughts. Their eyes flickered with admiration. However, if they knew the core of Qin Nan's Tao glow was nine-colored, they would have a different reaction. Seniors, thanks for your help. I'll be waiting for them to wake up. Qin Nan brought his fists together at the three old men. He did not have any other thoughts for the time being. He just wanted to wait patiently for them to wake up after comprehending the Tao intent. Kid, we'll be leaving soon. I have something to discuss with you. The old man with thinly spread hair glanced at Princess Miao Miao. His eyes flickered passionately. Why don't you let me take her with me? Don't worry, I'm only going to recruit her as my disciple and nurture her into an expert. I don't have any other thoughts. I'm willing to swear many oaths. The old man blurted out, Me too, I'm thinking of recruiting her as my disciple too. The scarecrow frowned when he saw his old friend's reaction. However, he let out a sigh when he recalled the martial art he had learned. He had no choice but to give up. Recruit them as my disciples? Qin Nan was startled. Qin Nan, you can accept their offer. If they are willing to recruit Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan as their disciples, it's a lot better than going to the Sky Taihuang sect with you. Empress Feiyue said coldly. Supreme Rodeo nodded in agreement too. That's right, don't you worry. The two old men nodded like chicks pecking at rice. They looked at Qin Nan eagerly. The two of them had their own factions, which were similar to their clans. It had been a long time since their factions had any exceptional geniuses. They had been looking for them many times, yet they had no chance of finding them. How could they possibly miss out on the opportunity when they stumbled into two great talents? Well, Qin Nan frowned. He pondered for a moment before nodding. I can accept their offer, but if they aren't willing, you can't force them. Qin Nan pondered for a moment and said, If that's the case, I'll ask seniors to stay here and wait for them to wake up after digesting the Tao intent. The old man with thinly spread hair immediately shook his head. He said sternly, "Kid, that won't do. We're taking them now." Chapter 1850. Qin Nan frowned even more. He knew the two old men were being considerate for Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan. It was a good thing for the latter too. However, he really had a lot to say to Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan. "If that's the case, bring me with you," Qin Nan said as a thought crossed his mind. "Sure, but you should think about it carefully. Who do you want to stay with when we're in two different places?" The old man with thinly spread hair said with an indifferent grin, "If I'm not mistaken, these two girls are your lovers. It won't be good for you to leave either of them behind." Supreme Rodeo nodded in agreement. The Scarecrow, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. "You're overthinking it. You're about to achieve the greater success stage of the Tao realm, and you're related to the immortals. Your future is limitless." Even though they were reincarnated and received great fortunate encounters, their foundations are still too weak. They're still a lot weaker than you. What if they decided to stay with you after they wake up? What would they think when you become a 9 Heavens Supreme, while they are only Heaven Immortals? How guilty would they feel if they ended up dragging you down? The Scarecrow let out a sigh and said, "The martial world has always been like this. Whether it's brotherhood or love, it's not a good thing if one of them is too weak compared to the other. Unless you've given up on pursuing the martial path." The old man with thinly spread hair and the old man with a disheveled appearance remained silent. They had witnessed too much over the years, thus they were deeply moved by it. Qin Nan fell silent too. He was definitely interested in pursuing the martial path. The Scarecrow suddenly burst out laughing. He exclaimed, "Kid, you're still young and so are they. You have a lot of time to spend in the future. Why are you in such a rush? You're about to achieve the greater success stage of the Tao realm. You should focus on comprehending the martial path. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on the opportunity. You should cultivate diligently and achieve the peerless ruler realm as soon as possible. I don't mind telling you, let these two girls follow these two old men. After they wake up, their cultivation will be much weaker than yours. When the time comes, you will all become peerless rulers. Wouldn't it be great to reunite among the crowd and challenge the first immortal realm together?" The last sentence left Qin Nan in a daze. In his mind, the scenes of him meeting Princess Miao Miao at the Xianling clan, fighting against Jiang Bailan in the lower district, and teaming up with her in the middle continent surfaced. "Senior, you're right. I'm a little too much." Junior Qin Nan would like to sincerely thank the three seniors. After a long time, Qin Nan took a deep breath and bowed again. "Cough, cough, let's skip the pleasantries. Let's talk about the immortal blessing resources that we owe you." The two old men coughed at the same time. "I must remind you that you've sworn an immortal demon oath and found such a great disciple. Shouldn't you celebrate by sharing your arts of Tao seeking?" Supreme Rodeo's lips curled upward. The two old men's lips twisted. They lowered their heads and pretended they did not hear anything. "Qin Nan, what about now?" the two old men probed. "Seniors, please give me a moment," Qin Nan said. He turned around and went up to Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan. He looked at their faces with a gentle gaze. "Don't blame me if you don't see me when you wake up. As Senior Scarecrow said, we should focus on our cultivation. Once we achieve the peerless ruler realm, we will challenge the first immortal realm together." Even though the two were still asleep, they seemed to be aware of something. Princess Miao Miao pursed her lips slightly, while Jiang Bailan was still smiling. "Seniors, I'll leave them in your hands." Qin Nan rose to his feet and withdrew the emotions in his heart. "Kid, don't you worry." The two old men raised their hands and unleashed a magnificent light of the Tao, which swept the two of them into it. Then, they swore 3 different oaths before they turned around and left. Wait, seniors, I forgot to ask for your names. Qin Nan suddenly collected his thoughts and asked. He still had no idea who the 3 old men were. He was only willing to trust them because of the copper mirror. The 2 old men and the scarecrow had long vanished into thin air. After a long while, 3 vigorous voices sounded. The strongest master of the 13 immortal realms, Mo Xiaoli. The strongest master of the 19 immortal realms, Li Ji. 23rd immortal realm, Heaven Master Shangyue. If you have nowhere else to go, you can come and be my disciple if you want to learn the Tao of formations. Meanwhile, in a blue forest in the northern realm, no mystical ground had shown up in the forest, nor were there any successions or fortunate encounters. As such, it was quite a peaceful place. But now, in the depths of the forest, there was a huge crater that was tens of thousands of feet wide and tens of thousands of feet deep. The bottom of the pit was dyed red with blood. A figure that had lost an arm and a leg was panting weakly with a huge hole in his chest. He was none other than Supreme South World. Not dead yet? The figure struggled to open his left eye and look into the sky. In an instant, he understood that it was the thing in his door that had saved his life. However, he did not feel any joy or surprise in his heart right now. He had achieved the 9 heavens supreme realm with his outstanding talent. He had tried to kill a heaven immortal in person, yet not only did he fail to kill the heaven immortal, he ended up like this instead. Besides, he still did not understand why a mere Qin Nan would have a master of Tao supporting him. Could it be that they had stumbled into one another by coincidence? It seems like I'm in luck to stumble into another severely injured 9 heavens supreme. A voice came from above. Supreme South World saw a short old man whose face was covered in ghostly runes slowly descending from above. Such serious injuries, what a pity! But it's fine, it's not a bad thing that I stumbled into him. I wonder if I can refine a phantom highness, the old man murmured while observing Supreme South World. He began to perform a mystical hand seal. Supreme South World fell silent. Was this his luck? He was on his last breath, yet he had stumbled into a powerful phantom cultivator? Isn't this the presence of the 10th immortal? The old man's eyes widened as he realized something. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.